Chapter 1447. Next to the divine blood, Yi Chen opened his eyes and turned to look at the Green Hoof War Saint. With the fall of the Radiant Sovereign and the Dead Sovereign, Yi Chen knew that the Green Hoof War Saint was no longer the same as before. He now had the ability to kill the 5 sovereigns. This was something that no mid-level demigod could do. Green Hoof War Saint, I didn't think that the Radiant Sovereign and the Dead Sovereign would die in your hands. They must be very unwilling, Yi Chen said. The Green Hoof War Saint grinned. They were indeed unwilling, but they brought this upon themselves. However, they were also very lucky to be killed by a high-rank demigod. Outside of the legendary celestial realm, I'm afraid no one has ever seen a high-rank demigod. Indeed, this is the first time I've seen one. Yi Chen nodded. In his eyes, the Green Hoof War Saint was millions of times more dazzling than the sun. This was the sign of a gold primordial spirit reaching its peak. How about it? Do you still need me to do it? The Green Hoof War Saint looked at Yi Chen mockingly. After becoming a high-rank demigod, he would be able to absorb the divine blood even faster. In a few years, he would be able to absorb the rest. But before that, he had to deal with Yi Chen. As for how, he had not decided yet. He would do it in a way that was more interesting. Do it. Yi Chen unsheathed the firmament sword. Die. The Green Hoof War Saint suddenly punched at Yi Chen. Clang. Sparks flew everywhere. Yi Chen's face turned pale as he was sent flying. Hey! The Green Hoof War Saint was a little surprised. He had only used 10 to 20% of his power, but if it was the Radiant Sovereign or the Dead Sovereign, they would definitely be gravely injured. Why did his opponent only turn pale? Something was wrong. Again, the Green Hoof War Saint once again punched at Yi Chen. This time, he used 30 to 40% of his power. Fart. Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Yi Chen continued to fly. Again, the Green Hoof War Saint used 100% of his power in this last punch. Pop. An invisible force was transmitted into Yi Chen's body, causing Yi Chen's body to tremble. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and spat out a large amount of blood. Cracks also appeared on his body. Impossible. Supremacy of light and supremacy of death were able to resist for so long because of their incorporeal forms. They received very little damage each time, only 1,000th or even a 10,000th of their actual damage. If Yi Chen used the law of water to turn incorporeal, he could accept it, but Yi Chen didn't use this ability at all. How did you do it? The ancient Hoof War Saint stared at Yi Chen. Yi Chen heaved a sigh of relief and smiled faintly. Thank you for giving me enough time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to raise my sword intent to the late stage of the 9th rank. Indeed, Yi Chen's 3 supreme sword intents had broken through to the late stage of the 9th rank. The higher one's sword intent was, the harder it was to improve. This was especially true for supreme sword intents. Once they broke through, their combat prowess would increase greatly. One had to know that at the late stage of the 9th rank, one was only 1 level away from the peak of the 9th rank, which was the limit of sword intent. Of course, a heaven-defying sovereign was still a heaven-defying sovereign. If it was any of the 5 sovereigns who had reached the late stage of the 9th rank, they still wouldn't be a match for the Green Hoof War Saint. However, among Yi Chen's 3 supreme sword intents was the Immortal sword intent. It was called Immortal and had an indestructible attribute. Apart from that, he also had the Black Tortoise sacred armor and the Immortal sword physique. With the continuous improvement of the Immortal sword intent, Yi Chen's Immortal sword physique reached the 17th level, allowing him to contend against an elementary demigod's attack. A late-stage 9th rank supreme sword intent? The Green Hoof War Saint narrowed his eyes. He didn't comprehend a supreme martial intent, but a lower-grade one. Even so, he still couldn't break through to the late stage of the 9th rank and was stuck at the peak of the mid-stage of the 9th rank. Yi Chen, a mere heaven-defying sovereign, had actually reached the late stage of the 9th rank. The Green Hoof War Saint didn't know whether he should admire or be jealous of Yi Chen. Even if you can hold on for a while, I don't believe you can hold on for 100 or even 1,000 years. The more stunning Yi Chen's performance was, the more the Green Hoof War Saint couldn't let Yi Chen live. Otherwise, once Yi Chen became an elementary demigod, no one would be able to stop him. Wisps of golden flames ignited on his body, and the aura of the Green Hoof War Saint increased by 1,000 times. A demigod's secret art? Yi Chen was startled. Die. The Green Hoof War Saint punched at Yi Chen. This punch was incomprehensibly fast. Even time and space began to reverse, and Yi Chen's reaction time was stretched. PFFF. Unprepared, Yi Chen spurted out a large amount of blood. Countless cracks appeared on his body, and he was instantly gravely injured. Even a large portion of his martial Dao nascent spirit was obliterated. No matter how powerful the immortal sword intent was, it couldn't perfectly defend against extreme combat power. He actually burned his gold martial Dao nascent spirit to obtain destructive power. Yi Chen didn't dare to be careless. He activated the law of water and instantly turned into a water man. At the same time, ripples appeared around him as if he was in a world of water. The next moment, the Green Hoof War Saint attacked again. The world of water was instantly pierced through, and the water man Yi Chen turned into was also destroyed. But soon, the water condensed and turned back into a water man. Turning incorporeal allowed Yi Chen to ignore the majority of the damage, just like the Radiant Sovereign and the Dead Sovereign. 1 year passed. 10 years passed. 100 years passed. The Green Hoof War Saint finally stopped burning his gold martial Dao nascent spirit. He glared angrily at Yi Chen. After becoming a high-rank demigod, he could burn his gold martial Dao nascent spirit to increase his combat power, but it couldn't last long. He could only last for 100 years thanks to the remaining god blood. Even so, the consumption was still great. On the other hand, Yi Chen didn't consume too much. The god blood in his body allowed him to last longer. Damn, if my martial intent can reach late-stage 9th order, I can definitely kill him, the Green Hoof War Saint thought. Sword Venerable Azure Lotus, I'll let you go for now. Hurry up and get out of the 15th floor. The Green Hoof War Saint turned and flew toward the god blood. Since he couldn't kill Yi Chen, he could only absorb the remaining god blood. Perhaps he could break through. Even if you want me to leave, I won't. Yi Chen also flew toward the god blood. You're courting death. The Green Hoof War Saint snorted. He didn't expect Yi Chen to be so daring to stay. Fine, once he broke through again, it would be the death of Yi Chen. Just like that, the Green Hoof War Saint and Yi Chen absorbed the god blood and minded their own business. Too slow. Seeing the rate at which the Green Hoof War Saint was absorbing the god blood, Yi Chen frowned. His absorption speed was only 1% of the Green Hoof War Saint's, which was too disadvantageous. I'll comprehend the power of laws first. Yi Chen gave up on absorbing the god blood. In any case, he hadn't used up all the god blood in his body and had stored it away. Metal gave birth to water, and water gave birth to wood. Yi Chen set his goal on the law of wood fragment. If he could comprehend the law of wood and the law of water and wood, his strength would reach a new peak. Chapter 1448. The wood law fragment was a thumb-sized seed. The seed was emerald green and brimming with endless vitality. The space around the seed was affected by this vitality, causing hundreds of flowers to blossom and vegetation to grow. When he was still some distance away from the wood law fragment, a dense forest blocked Yi Chen's path. The vines in the forest grew rapidly, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Whoosh! The world of water rippled, protecting Yi Chen. Meanwhile, Yi Chen used the world of water as a medium to sense the wood law fragment's existence. Metal gave birth to water, and water gave birth to wood. When the law of water came into contact with the wood law, it suffered much less resistance. Pushing aside the vines, Yi Chen gradually approached the wood law fragment. When he was only 10 meters away from the wood law fragment, a green radiance suddenly appeared. No matter how hard Yi Chen pushed the law of water, he couldn't advance an inch. Realizing that he couldn't get any closer, Yi Chen stopped and gently pressed his right hand on the green radiance. This was the manifestation of the wood law. With the protection of the world of water, he could safely touch it. The wood law was full of vitality. Vitality could save people and kill people. For example, a heavily injured person on the verge of death could be instantly healed by injecting the law of wood. However, if a seed was planted in a healthy person, once the seed grew, it could kill the healthy person. The law of wood contained life and death. Of course, it only contained a part of life and death. The true life and death were the law of life and the law of death. Want to comprehend a second law? The Greenhoof Battle Saint looked over with a cold glint in his eyes. If Yi Chen comprehended a second law, it would be difficult to deal with him. Whether it was a peak law, a powerful law, or a foundational law, each law had its own unique aspect and couldn't be underestimated. Even the Greenhoof Battle Saint wasn't sure how much of a boost the two laws would have to one's combat prowess. TMPH, a heaven-defying sovereign comprehending a second law is 10 times harder than comprehending a first law. I don't believe you can do it. Taking a deep breath, the Greenhoof Battle Saint closed his eyes and didn't look at Yi Chen. Right now, the most pressing matter at hand was to absorb all the god blood and strive for another breakthrough. Once his martial will broke through to the late Ninth Order, his strength would increase tremendously. At that time, regardless of whether Yi Chen comprehended the second type of law or not, it would have no effect on him. Comprehending the law of wood was smoother than Yi Chen had imagined. Perhaps it was because he had comprehended the law of water and had reached a very high level in the law of water. In Yi Chen's perception, he seemed to see countless green dots of light. These green dots of light were very gentle, like little fairies dancing in the air. One day, the green spots gathered together, increasing in number until they finally formed a green seed. The seed fell to the ground and sprouted, growing into a small tree. The small tree was weathered by the wind and rain, and it gradually grew into a towering tree. Its branches were luxuriant, and it was overflowing with green. Day after day, year after year, with the towering tree as the center and the roots of the towering tree as the link, new trees began to grow. Grass and flowers sprouted around the small tree, and the soil became abnormally fertile. As the wind blew, the seeds on the tree scattered everywhere, landing on the surrounding soil. Finally, a jungle was born. The jungle grew larger and larger, turning into a forest. The forest expanded with water, insects, and animals. Unknowingly, the forest changed the surrounding world, making the air fresher and the soil more fertile. Everywhere was brimming with vitality, cheerfulness, and relaxation. Silently, in Yi Chen's soul sea, an extremely small seed with a hint of green was gradually born. He had successfully comprehended the law of wood. Opening his eyes, Yi Chen's pupils turned emerald green. However, the emerald color quickly receded and returned to normal. This is the law of wood. Yi Chen retracted his right hand and spread it out. A green light flashed, and a small tree grew out of Yi Chen's palm. The small tree rapidly grew, turning into a towering tree. The branches of the towering tree could be hard or soft. When they were hard, they were like steel. When they were soft, they were like vines. They could whip the void as they pleased, and their destructive power seemed to be even higher than the law of water. Of course, this was the initial stage of the law of water. The current level of the law of water was too high, comparable to the law of light of supremacy. The small tree in his palm vanished, and Yi Chen's body suddenly turned green, turning into a green shadow. The green shadow contained infinite vitality. Yi Chen had a feeling that even if he was hit countless times, he would be able to instantly recover. It wouldn't consume his martial Dao Yuan spirit at all, only the power of the law of wood. In terms of survivability, the law of wood is definitely not inferior to the powerful laws. It is only slightly weaker than the peak laws. It had been more than 10,000 years since he came to the primal chaos battlefield, and he had seen a lot of laws. As for the characteristics of each law, he more or less had some understanding. In terms of survivability alone, the wood law was extremely outstanding. What? The Greenhoof Battle Saint was awakened by the spreading law of wood. Seeing Yi Chen's transformation, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Did he really comprehend the law of wood? So simple. Bastard, this is too unfair. The Greenhoof Battle Saint was extremely jealous. He was a high-grade demigod, yet he hadn't comprehended a single law. Yet, his opponent had comprehended too. How could he live? I'll let you be arrogant first. The fact that his opponent had comprehended the law of wood while he had yet to break through made the Greenhoof Battle Saint feel a sense of urgency. After comprehending the law of wood, Yi Chen could officially absorb the law of wood's fragments. The law of wood fragment in Yi Chen's soul sea was only the size of a sesame seed, while the one in the void was the size of a thumb. The difference between the two was huge. 100 years. 200 years. 500 years. After 500 years, the law of wood fragment in Yi Chen's soul sea was the size of a pinky finger. The one in the void was also the size of a pinky finger. More than half of it had been absorbed. I can't absorb anymore. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Yi Chen's eyes flashed. Since water begets wood and one could comprehend the law of wood, why couldn't wood beget fire and comprehend the law of fire? As soon as he thought of this, Yi Chen approached the law of fire fragment. The law of fire fragment in the void was like a cluster of flames, swaying gently. Sensing Yi Chen's approach, the flame suddenly surged and turned into a towering wave of heat that swept over. Activating the law of wood, a lush and flourishing world of wood appeared around Yi Chen. When the wave of heat came in contact with this world of wood, it immediately ignited. However, when it was 10 meters away from Yi Chen, it was blocked by a green radiance. Withstanding this green radiance, Yi Chen slowly approached the flame. So hot. Yi Chen felt that his breath was boiling hot. However, this also deepened his communication with the law of fire fragment. If he wanted to comprehend it, he had to experience it. The law of fire was violent, scorching, expanding, and extremely wild. It was completely different from the reserved law of water and the calm law of wood. Chapter 1449. As time passed, Yi Chen felt as if he had turned into a ball of fire with no specific shape. Wherever the wind blew, he would run. Whenever he saw a tree, he would burn. When he saw a river, he would burn. When he saw a starry sky, he would also burn. At first, it was just a ball of fire, but later, it became a super flame that could destroy an entire galaxy, forming a world of its own. Visible sparks could be seen on Yi Chen's body, but there was no smoke. Boom! Yi Chen suddenly burst into flames. Even his eyeballs were burning, turning into pure flames. Law of fire, complete. In his soul sea, a small flame was born, releasing heat that could not be ignored. Even faster. Yi Chen was moved. It took him about 200 years to comprehend the law of wood, but it only took him 150 years to comprehend the law of fire. However, there were 3 great laws in his soul sea, which added a lot of pressure. When he first comprehended the law of water, Yi Chen felt that it was too much. His soul sea could not contain it, but now, it could contain 3 great laws. Yi Chen understood that this was because he had made multiple breakthroughs in the primal chaos battlefield. His martial Dao Yuan Shen had reached the quasi-gold level, and his sword intent and heart sword had also improved. All aspects had improved a lot, especially after comprehending the law of wood. Not only did it not increase the pressure, but it also made Yi Chen more energetic, constantly nourishing his soul sea. Activating the law of fire, Yi Chen turned into a flaming man. Whoosh! The flaming man flickered back and forth with great explosive power. Under the same realm, his speed was even faster than the water travel art. Rumble! A fireball condensed in his hand, and Yi Chen threw it out, causing a huge explosion. Damn, the law of fire is also complete. The Greenhoof Battle Saint's heart was not in a good mood. Jealousy gave him a strong desire to kill Yi Chen immediately. No, I can't kill him now. I have to wait for my martial will to break through to the late stage of the 9th order. It would be best if I can break through in other aspects as well. Shaking his head, the Greenhoof Battle Saint suppressed his desire to kill. Soon, my martial will break through at any time, and my foundation as a high-grade demigod has also stabilized. After comprehending the law of fire, Yi Chen began to absorb the law of fire fragments to strengthen his law of fire realm. After spending 400 years, the law of fire had reached its limit and could no longer be improved. Only a small portion of the law of fire remained. Naturally, Yi Chen shifted his attention to the law of earth fragment. Metal begets water, water begets wood, wood begets fire, fire begets earth, and earth begets metal. The 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other, forming a cycle. The gravity is so strong. The closer he got to the law of earth fragment, the heavier Yi Chen felt. Every step he took required a great deal of strength and energy. Whoosh! A world of fire appeared, burning the void. The void where Yi Chen was had turned into a furnace. The heat waves were oppressive and offset a large amount of gravity. As he approached the law of earth fragment step by step, Yi Chen gradually comprehended the essence of the law of earth. The law of earth could bear and store all things. Fire gives birth to earth, but wood also grows on earth. There is water in the earth and water on the surface of the earth. Of the 5 elements, earth was in the middle. Standing in a world of nothingness, Yi Chen didn't feel anything. He had turned into a stone statue. The dust on the stone statue increased, turning into a small mountain. The small mountain turned into a large mountain. The large mountain was baptized by the passage of time and collapsed, turning into a flat and thick land. Finally, a piece of land was formed. It was simple and ancient, bearing and creating all things. In his soul sea, a grain of yellow gravel formed. Law of earth, formed. After absorbing the law of earth fragment, the gravel grew larger, softer, and more resilient, turning into a piece of yellow soil. When the 4 great laws reached the limit that Yi Chen could bear, Yi Chen clearly sensed that the divine blood in his body was rapidly turning into nutrients. The refining speed was more than 100 or even 1,000 times faster than before. The power of the 4 great laws swept through Yi Chen's body, nourishing Yi Chen's soul sea and nourishing Yi Chen's body. Pop! His soul sea shook, and golden light shone brightly. If Yi Chen's original soul sea, which was his soul, was a beginner demigod's golden soul, then his current soul was a mid-level demigod's golden soul. With the advancement of his soul, Yi Chen's martial path Yuan Shen throbbed as if it would break through at any time. Apart from that, there was no pressure to accommodate the 4 great laws. Even without the divine blood in his body, Yi Chen could still use the power of laws for a long time. His spirit body reached the pinnacle of the 9th rank, and his immortal sword body reached the 18th level. He could withstand the attack of a mid-level demigod by himself. The quantitative change of laws actually triggered a qualitative change. Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. This was something that he would never have thought of. However, it was understandable. It was already very heaven-defying for a heaven-defying supreme to comprehend 2 great laws. It was a miracle that he comprehended 4 great laws. Although it wasn't entirely due to his own efforts, it was due to luck. Law of metal. Now, only the law of metal was left to comprehend. Yi Chen couldn't wait to know what would happen after comprehending the law of metal. Becoming an elementary demigod? Reaching the pinnacle of the 9th rank? His soul reaching the golden level of a high-rank demigod? Anything was possible. Haha, my martial will has finally broken through to the late stage of the 9th rank, and my domain has also reached the late stage of the 9th level. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, let's fight again. At this moment, a loud laugh was heard. It was the ancient Hoof War Saint. Without any warning, waves of black, viscous gas spread out from the ancient Hoof War Saint and enveloped Yi Chen. This was the ancient Hoof War Saint's Black Horn domain. The might of a high-rank demigod activating the late-stage 9th level domain was simply too great. Caught off guard, Yi Chen was rendered immobile. Green Lotus Sword Domain, rise. A green lotus bloomed on Yi Chen's body, but it withered as soon as it bloomed. The difference in the power of their domains was too great. World of water, world of wood, world of fire, world of earth, Green Lotus Sword Domain. First, there were ripples, followed by the growth of the forest, followed by the sweeping of flames, and then ashes fell to the ground, forming a piece of land. Finally, a green lotus bloomed. Relying on the 4 worlds of laws and the Green Lotus Sword Domain, Yi Chen finally broke through the ancient Hoof War Saint's Black Cove Domain. Not only that, but the 4 worlds of laws and the Green Lotus Sword Domain worked together to suppress the ancient Hoof War Saint's Black Cove Domain. The ancient Hoof War Saint's momentum suddenly stagnated, no longer as domineering as before. Take my fist. The ancient Hoof War Saint narrowed his eyes and punched out. This punch contained an incomparably powerful will, as if it could pierce through spacetime. A late-stage 9th-rank martial will. Just in time. Yi Chen unsheathed the firmament sword and welcomed the incoming attack. This sword was not the billow sword, but had water radiance, flame radiance, green radiance, and yellow radiance, containing the power of 4 great laws. Although the 4 laws could not be fused together, which was something only a true god could do, when used together, the power was not as simple as 1 + 1. Chapter 1450. The law of water filled the law of wood with vitality, the law of wood strengthened the law of fire, and the law of fire strengthened the law of earth. In the end, the firmament sword turned into an earthen mountain that smashed down on the green hoof war saint. Boom! The void paused for a moment, then boundless ripples spread out and struck Yi Chen and the green hoof war saint. Yi Chen's immortal sword physique was enough to block the attacks of a mid-rank demigod. Coupled with the mystic tortoise sacred armor, ordinary high-rank demigods couldn't do anything to him. The boundless ripples sent Yi Chen flying, but they didn't injure Yi Chen at all. Freeze! Yi Chen roared and a layer of earthen armor condensed on his body. This was the armor of earth. The moment the armor formed, Yi Chen felt as if he was rooted in the void. The boundless ripples pushed him away but couldn't move him in the slightest. On the other hand, the green hoof war saint spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. In terms of offense, the green hoof war saint was stronger than Yi Chen. Even though Yi Chen had 4 great laws, he was much weaker than Yi Chen in terms of defense. Yi Chen could resist the boundless ripples, but the green hoof war saint couldn't. Of course, this was only a small loss. Spitting out blood wasn't even an injury to a high-rank demigod, it was merely a waste of energy. How can this be? The green hoof war saint couldn't believe it. His offense was higher than Yi Chen's, but in terms of overall strength, Yi Chen was above him. Defense was also a part of one's strength. Green hoof war saint, take another slash from me. Withstanding the boundless ripples, Yi Chen slashed at the green hoof war saint once more. The earthen mountain tore through the boundless ripples and heavily smashed into the green hoof war saint. The green hoof war saint was sent flying like a shooting star. With 4 great laws, Yi Chen no longer feared high-rank demigods. Even against the best of them, Yi Chen was confident he could escape unscathed. The battle between the two of them lasted for 100 years. Neither was willing to back down. Although the green hoof war saint was being suppressed, as a high-rank demigod, his origin energy was powerful and his martial soul was nearly indestructible. Yi Chen would have a hard time injuring him, let alone killing him. In comparison, Yi Chen's defense was even more monstrous. With the immortal sword body and the black tortoise sacred armor, Yi Chen was able to resist the attacks of the ancient hoof war saint. Coupled with the earth armor, the saint's attacks were no different from tickles to Yi Chen. Taking a step back, even if the first 3 couldn't stop the ancient hoof war saint, Yi Chen could still turn incorporeal and ignore the majority of the damage. The law of wood could also allow Yi Chen to instantly recover. After 100 years, Yi Chen had developed the wondrous uses of the power of laws to the limit. The law of water had water movement techniques and water world. The wood laws included the verdant wood body and the wood world. The law of fire had the fire traversing technique, the world of fire. The law of earth had the earth armor and the earth world. Although they didn't have many uses, they were actually all-encompassing. The world of law could even be used as a domain. Swordmaster Azure Lotus, we can't do anything to each other. Why don't we stop for now? The green hoof war saint was extremely sullen. As a high-rank demigod, he couldn't even defeat a heaven-defying sovereign. This was a great humiliation. He didn't want to fight with Yi Chen anymore. After absorbing the last of the god blood, he would immediately find an exit to leave the 15th floor. The primal chaos battlefield was so vast and had countless fortunes. Why should he fight to the death with Yi Chen? It wasn't worth it. Fine. Yi Chen decisively stopped. In the past 100 years, he was only using the green hoof war saint to practice. He didn't really want to fight to the death. Afterward, the two minded their own business. The green hoof war saint absorbed the god blood while Yi Chen comprehended the last elemental law, the metal law. The law of metal fragment was a metal ball the size of a longan. It emitted a faint golden light. The golden light was not dazzling, but it gave off an extremely sharp feeling. It was as if being illuminated by the golden light would immediately blind one's eyes. The earth world spread and the earth armor covered his body. Yi Chen gradually approached the metal law fragment. Among the 5 elemental laws, the law of metal was the one with the strongest offensive power. It was extremely sharp. Although the law of fire was violent, it was still inferior to the law of metal. 200 years passed. Oh! Yi Chen frowned. Comprehending the metal law was much more difficult than he had imagined. It had to be said that he only spent 200 years to comprehend the wood law, 150 years to comprehend the fire law, and 100 years to comprehend the earth law. The elemental laws are only missing the metal law. It seems like this has nothing to do with the metal law. It's the primal chaos law's interference, not allowing me to easily comprehend the metal law and comprehend the 5 elemental laws. Yi Chen immediately thought of the crux of the matter. If 200 years wasn't enough, then 300 years. Yi Chen continued to comprehend. In the blink of an eye, 600 years passed. I've finally finished absorbing the divine blood. Let's leave this place first. Glancing at Yi Chen and seeing that he was still comprehending the metal law, the Green Hoof War Saint heaved a sigh of relief. He was truly afraid that Yi Chen would comprehend the metal law. If that happened, he would be in danger. Even if he didn't die, he would still lose a layer of skin. After all, who knew what kind of monstrous progress one would make in comprehending the 5 elemental laws? The 15th underground floor had only entrances and exits. There was a passage when one entered, but it would disappear after entering. The Green Hoof War Saint flew toward the edge of the 15th floor, looking for an exit. 700 years. 1,000 years. 2,000 years. Time passed quickly. Soon, it had been 20,000 years since Yi Chen came to the 15th underground floor. On this day, Yi Chen's body emitted a dazzling golden light, as if he had turned into a golden man. In his soul sea, a grain-sized metal sphere was born. It emitted a sharp golden light and formed a ring with the other 4 great law fragments. Perhaps for an instant, perhaps for an eternity. A faint layer of 5-colored light flickered on Yi Chen's body. Every time it flickered, Yi Chen felt his body sublimate. Crackle. Miraculously, Yi Chen's spirit body advanced from peak rank 9 to perfection. Ever since then, his spirit body had reached its limit and could no longer be improved, unless he became a true god and condensed a divine body. His immortal sword body did not break through. It was still at the 18th level, but without a doubt, he had reached the peak. The 5-colored light not only changed Yi Chen's physique, but it also increased the speed of refining the divine blood by millions of times. However, the 5-colored light was also consumed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was gone. Yi Chen took a deep breath and began to absorb the metal law fragment. Right now, the level of the metal law was still very weak. It was not on par with the other 4 great laws. When the level of the metal law increased, the 5-colored light should be more. The only pity was that he did not have enough divine blood. He had just consumed a lot of it, and he did not know if it could provide enough nutrition. Comprehending the metal law was difficult, but absorbing the metal law fragment was much easier. Every time he absorbed a strand of the metal law fragment, the 5-colored light on Yi Chen's body would appear once. Yi Chen felt that he was getting closer and closer to becoming a primary demigod. It was as if there was only a thin veil between them, and when it was lifted, a new world would appear. Chapter 1451. The blood of a true god contained god power, which was the combination of heart power, energy, chi power, domain, and will. As the 5-colored light continued to appear, Yi Chen's green lotus sword realm naturally broke through to the late 9th level. A huge green lotus bloomed, with patterns like the veins of the galaxy, containing endless mysteries. The breakthrough of Green Lotus Sword domain didn't attract the slightest bit of his attention. At this moment, he felt like he was the mouth of a volcano. Inside the volcano, there was a world-destroying energy that could erupt at any time. He didn't know whether he would be burnt to ashes at the moment of eruption, or whether his body would be smashed into pieces. The frequency of the five-colored light became higher and higher. When the level of the metal law reached the limit that Yi Chen could endure, a five-colored light pillar shot into the sky, covering Yi Chen. Ah! Yi Chen could not help but scream. An eternal golden light shot out of his body. It was not as dazzling as the light law, but it gave people the illusion that it would never be extinguished. It was as if this was eternity. Time had lost its meaning, and so had space. Like a god, Yi Chen's eyes had a hint of gold, and his skin was also pale gold. The martial path Yuan spirit in his body had evolved into a gold martial path Yuan spirit, without any impurities. He reached out and clenched his fist, causing the air to tremble in fear of his power. Is this the power of a demigod? Yi Chen closed his eyes and felt it carefully. The power of laws was the power of laws, and cultivation was cultivation. The feeling they brought was different. The power of laws was the use of external power, while cultivation was the power of one's own body, which was more real. Before, without using the power of laws, Yi Chen could not fly. But now, with his own power, he was floating in the air. The moment he became a beginner demigod, his soul broke through again, from the middle demigod level to the high demigod level. From now on, even without the support of god blood and god power crystals, he did not need to worry about using too much power of laws and getting hurt. Because with his beginner demigod cultivation and the soul sea of a high demigod, he could use the power of laws as he pleased. Correspondingly, his soul sea could withstand higher nomological realms. Starting from absorbing the fragments of the law of metal, Yi Chen spent a mere 50 years to absorb all the remaining fragments of the law of metal, leaving nothing behind. The law of water fragment took 45 years. The law of wood fragment took 60 years. The law of fire fragment took 52 years. The law of earth fragment took 54 years. There was a metal ball the size of a longan, a seed the size of a thumb, a water ball the size of a fist, a cluster of bright flames, and an irregular piece of yellow soil floating in his soul sea. The 5 great nomological fragments were arranged in a circle, and at the center of the circle, traces of 5-colored light gathered. That was the nomological power of the 5 elements. Condense. A golden spear suddenly appeared in Yi Chen's hand. Law of metal, spear of metal. The golden spear dissipated, and Yi Chen pulled out the firmament sword, which was covered with a layer of gold. The golden spear was not necessarily in the shape of a spear. It could be in any shape, and it could also be attached to a weapon to increase its attack power. The world of metal was extremely sharp, and any object that entered the range of the world of metal would be pierced by the golden light. Even a powerful demigod might not have a higher nomological realm than me. Of course, some peak powerful demigods are not in this category, but powerful demigods have already refined godly power. In terms of overall strength, I'm definitely not a match for them. Godly power combined with nomological power is the foundation of a powerful demigod. Yi Chen was now very confident, but he also knew his limits. In front of a powerful demigod, he was still an ant. This was an indisputable fact. But in front of him, weren't high-level demigods also ants? I'll come back later to see if I can comprehend other laws. Right now, I'll go see where the Greenhoof War Saint went. The world of metal dissipated, and Yi Chen instantly turned into a man of fire. Whoosh! With a flash of fire, Yi Chen disappeared without a trace. His speed was more than 1,000 times faster than before. Among the 5 elements, the fire traversing art was the fastest and had the most explosive power, while the water traversing art was the fastest in water. Damn it, where's the exit? The Greenhoof War Saint had been searching for the exit for nearly 10,000 years. In his view, the entire 15th floor was like a lost world, completely isolated from the outside world. Following the edge of the wall, the Greenhoof War Saint numbly searched. After several hundred years, the Greenhoof War Saint finally saw a glimmer of light. Joy appeared in his eyes. Could it be the exit? No, that's a flame. The Greenhoof War Saint's expression changed. A moment later, a man of fire appeared in front of him. Who else could it be but Yi Chen? Sword Venerable Azure Lotus, what are you doing? The Greenhoof War Saint was a bit apprehensive. After nearly 10,000 years, Yi Chen might have comprehended the law of metal. Once the latter did so, the Green Hoof War Saint would be even less of a match. Although the Green Hoof War Saint was confident in protecting himself, the initiative was not on his side. Who knew if the other party would spend a long time exhausting him? Green Hoof War Saint, long time no see. Your luck is really bad, you still haven't found the exit. Yi Chen playfully looked at the Green Hoof War Saint as the flame on his body gradually extinguished. The Green Hoof War Saint was about to speak when he suddenly pointed at Yi Chen in shock. You've become an elementary demigod. How is this possible? Earlier, Yi Chen had turned into a man of fire and was shrouded in the law of fire, so the Green Hoof War Saint didn't notice that Yi Chen was already an elementary demigod. Now that the law of fire had dissipated, the Green Hoof War Saint finally noticed Yi Chen's cultivation. If Yi Chen had only comprehended the law of metal, the Green Hoof War Saint wouldn't be so afraid. Even if the latter was stronger than him, it wouldn't be to such an abnormal degree. As a high-rank demigod, his martial soul was almost indestructible. Unless the difference in power was too great, it would be very difficult to kill him. The only way was to exhaust him over a long period of time. However, Yi Chen had actually become an elementary demigod. With his cultivation combined with the power of laws, he was an existence close to a powerful demigod. Before this, Yi Chen was already stronger than him, but now, Swordmaster Azure Lotus, let's talk this out. There is no irreconcilable conflict between us. The Green Hoof War Saint cautiously looked at Yi Chen, ready to flee at any moment. Yi Chen shook his head. Green Hoof War Saint, I won't waste words with you. I want the god blood in your body. It's that simple, so please die. With that, Yi Chen activated the law of fire. A moment later, a terrifying world of fire spread out and enveloped the Green Hoof War Saint, turning the entire void into a furnace that burned everything. Ah! The Green Hoof War Saint screamed and became a man of fire. Then, he turned into ashes, and even his golden martial soul was no exception. Yi Chen's mastery of the law of 5 elements was very high. After absorbing all the fragments, Yi Chen could instantly kill an ordinary high-rank demigod by relying on the world of fire. Too easy. Yi Chen did not expect it to be this easy, which was a bit unexpected. Chapter 1452. Inside the world of fire, 2 objects floated in the air. One was the unrefined god blood, and the other was the storage ring. Yi Chen couldn't destroy the unrefined god blood, as it was protected by the god power. The storage ring of the ancient Hoof Battle Saint was purposely left behind by Yi Chen. Ignoring the god blood for now, Yi Chen sucked the storage ring into his hand. Not bad. Opening the storage ring, Yi Chen revealed a faint smile. Those who came to the miracle were all experts, and those who came to the 15th floor were the experts among the experts. They had more and more symbols than ordinary people. As the only living person in the 15th floor, Yi Chen naturally obtained all the symbols. Right now, Yi Chen had collected 3 sets of golden chaos symbols, but he was still lacking 7, 8, and 9 numbers for the blue chaos symbols. These 3 blue chaos symbols should be very hard to collect. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to not have even one. Apart from the 3 sets of golden symbols, there were still thousands of duplicates of golden symbols and hundreds of duplicates of blue symbols. As long as his luck wasn't bad, he should be able to collect more. However, for Yi Chen, as long as he could collect 3 sets of golden symbols and 1 set of blue symbols, it would be a waste. Of course, he could give them to others. Putting away the storage ring, Yi Chen looked at the god blood. There wasn't much left, only 10% of the original amount. The rest had all been refined by the ancient Hoof Battle Saint. However, Yi Chen was very satisfied. He had absorbed less than 1% of the original amount after so many years. He tried to absorb the god blood with all his might. Yi Chen discovered that his absorption speed was thousands of times faster than before. Even the ancient Hoof Battle Saint couldn't compare to him. Comprehending the 5 elements brought him a huge advantage. In less than a year, Yi Chen had absorbed 10% of the god blood into his body. This bit of god blood should be enough for me to break through to mid-level demigod. But, I have to leave some for Shu Jing and Murong. Whoosh! Flames flickered as Yi Chen dashed in the direction of the fragment, moving as fast as lightning. First, he set his sights on the Law of Wind fragment. The firmament sword contained the Law of Wind. If he could comprehend the Law of Wind, he would be able to unleash the power of the firmament sword to a higher level. No. Yi Chen shook his head. Even after dozens of years, he still had no clue. The 5 elemental laws seemed to be rejecting him from comprehending other laws. No. It won't work either. It still won't work. He tried them one by one, but they all failed. Fortunately, the firmament sword had absorbed some fragments of the Law of Wind, so it was not without gains. Looks like the law fragments here are not fated with me. If I try to comprehend them forcefully, it will definitely take me a long time. Yi Chen decided to leave. Xu Jing and Murong Qingcheng were still waiting for him. He couldn't waste any more time here. Haha. So many Law of Nature fragments. I happen to need the Wind Law of Nature fragment. All of a sudden, a voice rang out. This was a heaven-defying supreme being. His speed was extremely fast, and he was clearly using the wind-walking technique. Under the same realm of laws, the wind-walking technique was even faster than the fire-walking technique. If it was in the past, Yi Chen would definitely kill the other party, but now, he just shook his head and used the fire-walking technique, disappearing without a trace. Killing a heaven-defying supreme was not beneficial to him. He already had all the benefits he deserved. So fast. This supreme who comprehended the Law of Wind was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He originally thought that apart from the 5 supremes and the peak mid-level demigods, he should be invincible. But that person's speed was too terrifying, more than 1,000 times faster than him. He must have absorbed the Fire Law of Nature fragment. As long as I absorb the Wind Law of Nature fragment, I shouldn't be inferior to him. This person thought to himself. Yi Chen's speed was many times faster than the ancient Hufuo saint, and his speed in finding the exit was also many times faster. After 800 years, Yi Chen finally found the exit. This exit was very small, and if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't notice it at all. Compared to the vast 15th floor, it was the size of a needle. It made people speechless. After leaving the 15th floor, Yi Chen directly came to the surface. No matter how small a mosquito's leg is, it's still meat. The world of water filled the air, and all the moisture in the air became Yi Chen's eyes. Yi Chen discovered that there were still many palaces that had not been opened, and there were definitely divine force crystals and law fragments inside. At present, it was still a bit difficult for Xu Jing and Murong Qingcheng to absorb the divine blood, so divine force crystals were just right for them. Just like this, after another 500 years, Yi Chen swept through the divine ruin and obtained more than 10,000 divine force crystals. He also absorbed some Law of 5 Elements fragments. The only pity was that he couldn't absorb the other law fragments, nor could he take them away. Time to go. Turning into a fiery light, Yi Chen flew out of the divine ruin. When he first came to the primal chaos battlefield, Yi Chen felt that flying speed was too slow. It would take at least a year to cross a domain, but now, Yi Chen only needed 2 hours to cross a domain. After searching one domain after another, Yi Chen finally found news about Xu Jing. There was a city in the 9 domains called Celestial Wolf City, which was built by the Celestial Wolf Battle Sage. There were many cities like this in other domains. In the years that Yi Chen had been in the Divine Ruin, the Primal Chaos continent had changed a lot. Gangs and all kinds of forces had sprung up like bamboo shoots after a rain. Celestial Wolf City was the #1 force in the 9 domains. Living in Celestial Wolf City required paying 10 million yuan stones every year. In addition, one had to work for Celestial Wolf City. Near Celestial Wolf City, there was a rich mine that produced Chaos Stones. Chaos Stones were a type of cultivation stone that was of a higher grade than Yuan Stones, and were used for demigods to cultivate. Demigods would need a much longer time to break through if they relied on Yuan Stones alone. Generally, Yuan Stones were used to replenish consumption or to set up formations. For example, Celestial Wolf City was filled with all kinds of formations and restrictions. Big sister, why don't we leave Celestial Wolf City and go to other domains? Within an ordinary-looking palace in Celestial Wolf City, there were hundreds of female paragons and 10 or so female demigods gathered. The female demigod in the lead was a pitilessly beautiful woman with very long legs. She wore a long black dress, and just by sitting there, she was extremely graceful, making it impossible for others to look away even if they wanted to. 100 Blossom Hall was a small force attached to Celestial Wolf City. It was made up entirely of women, and the hall master was the Black Flower Battle Sage. She was definitely the #1 beauty in Celestial Wolf City. This kind of beauty was not just in appearance, but also in spirit. You guys are too naive. Celestial Wolf City is the #1 force in the 9 domains, and the Celestial Wolf Battle Sage is the #1 expert in the 9 domains. Even if we escape to other domains, he will not let us go. He might even implicate you guys. Moreover, whether or not we can leave Celestial Wolf City is another matter altogether. Black Flower Battle Sage shook her head helplessly. She had already prepared to sacrifice herself to the Celestial Wolf Battle Sage. Resistance would not help and would only bring disaster to 100 Blossom Hall. As she spoke, Black Flower Battle Sage glanced at the sisters present. These were all sisters she had met in the Primal Chaos battlefield. There were demigods, heaven-defying paragons, quasi-demigods, and ordinary paragons. Among the large number of paragons was Xu Jing. Chapter 1453. Xu Jing looked at the Black Flower Battle Saint with a complicated expression. Her elder sister had always treated them well. Without her, Xu Jing didn't think she could have lived peacefully until now. Of course, her elder sister also had a domineering side. She made them hand over all their storage rings and saint weapons. Naturally, Xu Jing's Sky Saint armor and weapons were all handed over to her. Xu Jing didn't hold a grudge. She couldn't keep the Sky Saint weapon with her. Once it was leaked, it would be taken away sooner or later, and she might even be killed. Therefore, when the Black Flower Battle Sage was in trouble, Xu Jingting wanted to help him. Unfortunately, with her own strength, she could not help him at all. Ordinary supreme beings were the lowest group in the Primal Chaos battlefield. They could not even protect themselves. If Yi Chen were here, he should be able to help. Unconsciously, Xu Jing thought of Yi Chen. In her heart, Yi Chen was omnipotent. When Yi Chen had just arrived at the Chaos battlefield, he might only be able to contend against a primary demigod. However, after 20,000 years, Yi Chen must have made great progress. Xu Jing firmly believed that. Haha, Black Flower Battle Saint, have you thought it through? I, the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint, don't like to force people, but I won't give you too much time to think. Outside the palace, a large amount of black smoke condensed, forming a tall figure. The figure had a third eye on his forehead, flickering with a frightening cold light. The Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint, the #1 expert of the 9 regions, was a peak mid-level demigod. Soon, the Black Flower Battle Saint walked out of the palace with a group of sisters. The Black Flower Battle Saint floated up, her long black dress like a black curtain, accentuating her snow-white skin. Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint, I am willing to be your woman. The Black Flower Battle Saint nodded. Good, Black Flower Battle Saint, you are very wise. I am very happy. The Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint revealed a smile, and his frightening aura gradually eased. Looking at the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint, the Black Flower Battle Saint continued, but I have a request. Speak. The 100 Flowers Hall is my faction. You can restrict my freedom, but you cannot restrict their freedom. Glancing at the people of 100 Blossom Hall, the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint flatly refused. No, since you are my woman, then 100 Blossom Hall belongs to my Heavenly Wolf City. They must listen to my orders. How can they act freely? The Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint had always been domineering. He only needed people to obey him, not conditions. As the two of them were negotiating, in the distance of Celestial Wolf City, a streak of fiery light was rapidly approaching. In the blink of an eye, it was still 1,000 miles away, but in the blink of an eye, it was already right in front of them. It was the blue-robed Yi Chen. This is Tianlang City. Yi Chen sized up the huge city in front of him. This huge city was extremely majestic and domineering. Above the city gates, There were 3 large words: Heavenly Wolf City. It clearly contained a domineering martial will that could be seen and felt from far away. Activating the law of water, the water vapor in the air instantly became Yi Chen's eyes. He could clearly see the inside of Tianlang City. The countless arrays and restrictions were useless before the law of water. Soon, a smile appeared on Yi Chen's face. He had discovered Shu Jing. Whoosh! Transforming into a streak of fiery light, Yi Chen instantly passed through the arrays and restrictions of Tianlang City and arrived in the sky above the 100 Flowers Hall. Shu Jing. The flames were extinguished, and Yi Chen slowly spoke. It was Yi Chen's voice. Shu Jing hurriedly raised her head and saw the blue-robed Yi Chen. Tears immediately blurred her eyes, and the longing in her heart reached its peak at this moment. She could no longer control herself. In the next moment, the 2 of them hugged each other tightly, completely ignoring the existence of everyone else. Who is this? He should be little sister Shu Jing's man. He looks quite powerful. How can a heaven-defying supremacy who has comprehended the law of fire not be powerful? But he's too reckless. This is Tianlang City. Isn't he afraid of offending the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint by acting like this in front of him? I hope nothing happens to him. The sisters of the 100 Flowers Hall discussed animatedly. Even the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint and the Black Flower Battle Saint looked over. Letting go of Shu Jing's body, Yi Chen stared into her eyes and said warmly, "You've worked hard all these years. In the future, I will never let you suffer again." Yi Chen noticed that Shu Jing was not wearing a Heavenly Saint artifact armor. It was not difficult to imagine that many things must have happened in the past. It was already a blessing in disguise that the 2 of them could meet again. For a moment, Yi Chen was a little annoyed with himself. He should not have comprehended the law of metal and wasted nearly 10,000 years. However, Yi Chen did not seriously consider it. If he had not comprehended the law of metal, he would not have become an elementary demigod and would not have found the exit so quickly. It should be known that the ancient Hoof Battle Saint had also searched for the exit for nearly 10,000 years. If Yi Chen had not become an elementary demigod, he might not have found the exit even now, wasting even more time. Covering Yi Chen's mouth, Shu Jing said, "It's already heaven's blessing that we can meet. At least, I waited until you came. By the way, have you found little sister Qing Cheng?" Shu Jing suddenly asked. Yi Chen's face darkened. Shaking his head, he said, "Not yet. I will accompany you to look for her. Don't worry too much. I think little sister Qing Cheng should be waiting for you, just like me." Yi Chen nodded. A cold light flickered in the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint's eyes. These 2 were too presumptuous. They did not even take him seriously. Moreover, this heaven-defying sovereign dared to fly above Heavenly Wolf City. He deserved to die 1,000 times over. With a cold snort, the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint's right hand suddenly grabbed at Yi Chen and Shu Jing, turning into a giant hand of black smoke along the way. In his eyes, the so-called heaven-defying sovereigns were just ants. Only the 5 sovereigns could fight him. Scram! Yi Chen tilted his head and smashed the giant hand of black smoke with a fire fist. Finally, it landed heavily on the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint's chest. With a sweep of flames, the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint's chest was almost penetrated. His body was charred black and smoking. His appearance was so miserable that everyone was dumbfounded. What? He is an elementary demigod who has comprehended the law. He is not a heaven-defying sovereign. Terrifying. The Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint was seriously injured with one punch. The sky of the 9 regions is going to change. I didn't expect little sister Shu Jing's man to be so powerful. He can be said to be invincible. The sisters of the 100 Blossom Hall were both shocked and envious. The one whose expression changed the most was the Hall Master of the 100 Blossom Hall, the Black Flower Battle Saint. Little sister Shu Jing usually kept a low profile, but no one expected her to have such a powerful background. Oh no, little sister Shu Jing's Heavenly Saint artifact was still in her possession. Although she had willingly given it to her, her man might not think the same way. Even a fool would know that little sister Shu Jing's Heavenly Saint artifact was given to her by her man. How could an ordinary person possess a heavenly saint artifact? The Black Flower Battle Saint panicked. My lord, I have offended you just now. I deserve to die. Please spare my life. The Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint was severely injured. More than half of his gold martial primordial spirit had been destroyed. However, at this moment, he had no other thoughts. All he wanted was to survive. Xu Jing, how do you think we should deal with him? Yi Chen looked at Xu Jing. If Xu Jing wanted him to kill, he would kill. If Xu Jing wanted him to release, he would release. Chapter 1454. Xu Jing looked at Celestial Wolf Battle Saint. Celestial Wolf Battle Saint also looked at Xu Jing and begged for mercy. If you are willing to let me go, I am willing to hand over all my savings. Celestial Wolf City is also yours. Kill him. Xu Jing said coldly. She would never forget how Celestial Wolf Battle Saint killed 3 sisters of 100 Flower Hall. One of the sisters had been with her for more than 20,000 years, and they were as close as sisters. Bitch, I will make you wish you were dead. Boom. His body exploded into black smoke. When he reappeared, Celestial Wolf Battle Saint was already very far away. He was a life form of the Dark Fog universe and could naturally transform into Dark Fog. You think you can escape? Yi Chen casually threw another fiery fist at Celestial Wolf Battle Saint. This time, the might of the fiery fist was more than 10,000 times greater, and it was billions of times more dazzling than a comet. In an instant, it streaked across the sky and landed on the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint. In the next moment, the Heavenly Wolf Battle Saint's entire body exploded and turned into ashes. The dazzling light illuminated the entire Heavenly Wolf City. Celestial Wolf Battle Saint is dead. Who killed him? He's so strong. Not even the 5 Supremes could kill Celestial Wolf Battle Saint, unless it was Supremacy Yin, one of the original 5 Supremes and the current Yin-Yang Battle Saint. Almost everyone in Celestial Wolf City saw the scene just now and was shocked. Invincible, peerless. Black Flower Battle Saint's heart was touched. Yi Chen gave her many feelings. He was mysterious, powerful, gentle, considerate, and at the same time, indescribably domineering. Compared to Celestial Wolf Battle Saint, Yi Chen was undoubtedly more attractive. Celestial Wolf Battle Saint used his heart to conquer women, while Celestial Wolf Battle Saint used his strength to conquer women. Sister Love Flower, rest in peace. Revenge has been taken. Xu Jing thought to herself. Xu Jing, who are they? Yi Chen looked at Black Flower Battle Saint and the others. Xu Jing introduced, Big Sister is the Hall Master of 100 Flower Hall, Black Flower Battle Saint. She treats us very well. The rest are sisters of 100 Flower Hall. Black Flower Battle Sage, thank you for taking care of Xu Jing for so long. Let me give you a little gift. I hope you won't mind. Yi Chen waved his right hand, and hundreds of dazzling specks of light entered the Black Flower Battle Saint's body. These specks of light were the crystallization of divinity. Yi Chen was able to conceal the radiance of the crystallization of divinity with the help of the laws of 5 elements and his cultivation as an elementary demigod, making it less conspicuous. Yi Chen also concealed the radiance of the crystallization of divinity. Yi Chen did not wish for the Black Flower Battle Saint to be killed or be targeted by others because of the crystallization of divinity. Just as the Black Flower Battle Saint was about to refuse, a look of surprise flashed across her eyes. It was a divine power crystal. A single divine power crystal could save a demigod 10,000 years of cultivation. 100 divine power crystals could save at least 1,000,000 years of cultivation. Thank you. The Black Flower Battle Saint revealed a grateful expression, then looked at Xu Jing. With a wave of her hand, 3 objects flew toward Xu Jing. They were the Sky Saint armor, a Sky Saint weapon, and a storage ring. Sister, these are your things. I'll return them to you. Sister, you won't blame me for taking your things, right? The Black Flower Battle Saint was a bit ashamed. Taking the Sky Saint weapon and the storage ring, Xu Jing said in a gentle voice, how could I? Without you, it would still be a problem for me to live. I believe the sisters of 100 Flower Hall all think the same. Without the Black Flower Battle Saint, there would be no 100-flower hall. Without the 100-flower hall, everyone would have no home, no power to protect them. Compared to their lives, what were external objects worth? The next day, Yi Chen and Xu Jing left the Sky Wolf City. The Sky Wolf Battle Saint has quite a lot of treasures. Regarding the Sky Wolf Battle Saint's savings, Yi Chen naturally wouldn't be lenient. He took everything he wanted, leaving nothing behind. Even the majority of the Chaos Gem mines near the Sky Wolf City were dug out by Yi Chen and stored in the 5-element space. After comprehending the 5 elements, Yi Chen could open up a 5-element space in the Chaos battlefield. This 5-element space was extremely stable and wouldn't be shattered by the primal chaos principle. The 5-element space was inside Yi Chen's body, which was equivalent to a mobile storage ring. However, the space inside was much higher than that of a storage ring. It was completely suitable for living beings to live inside, no different from the real world. In the 5-element space, a chain of mines stretched as far as the eye could see. In the depths of the mines, there was a paradise, filled with birdsong, fragrant flowers, waterfalls, and countless beautiful sceneries. Xu Jing sat cross-legged on a piece of flat land, diligently cultivating. With a large amount of divine power crystals, Xu Jing could make great progress at every moment. After all, even if her cultivation base was low, her progress was fast. Leaving the 9 regions, Yi Chen arrived at the 8 regions. Yi Chen discovered that the higher the ranking, the more powerful experts there were, and the more treasures there were. There were all kinds of different forces, enough to make one dizzy. In order to search for Murong Qingcheng, Yi Chen controlled a large number of forces and had them help him search. He understood that there was strength in numbers. For a moment, Yi Chen's name resounded. Everyone in the top-ranked regions knew of the Green Lotus Sword Saint, who possessed peerless martial strength. Even the 5 great supremes were not his opponent. Lord Sword Saint, the 7 regions don't have the person you speak of. Lord Sword Saint, the 14 regions don't have the person you speak of. Lord Sword Saint, although Yi Chen had searched in other regions before, at that time, his strength wasn't very strong, and there were more or less mistakes. This time, Yi Chen ordered all the forces to turn the entire primal chaos continent upside down. Not a single place was left unchecked. One region, this was the only place that Yi Chen's forces did not dare to set foot in. This was because there was also a peerless expert here, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint was originally one of the 5 great supremes. He was called Supremacy Yin, and his strength was comparable to Supremacy Light. However, by chance, not only did Supremacy Yin become a primary demigod, but he also comprehended another type of nomological law, the Yang nomological law. His strength was earth-shattering, and no one was his opponent. Yin-Yang City was the Yin-Yang Battle Saints force, and it was the only force in this region. Yin-Yang City's main palace. In the spacious and deep palace, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint opened his eyes. Is he finally here? Even from far away, he could feel Yi Chen's aura. This aura was something that only he could feel because they were experts of the same level. I'm so excited. I finally have an opponent. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint's figure flashed and turned into a white stream of air. His speed was not any slower than Yi Chen's. From afar, the two of them saw each other. Yin-Yang Battle Saint, Green Lotus Sword Saint. The two of them introduced each other. I'm looking for someone. I hope you can cooperate. Yi Chen said. I'm happy to cooperate, but the premise is that you can survive my attack. If you die, there's no need for me to cooperate. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint smiled, and his battle intent soared. Yi Chen frowned slightly, but he quickly relaxed. Okay, as you wish. Days without an opponent were very boring. Yi Chen also wanted to know how strong the Yin-Yang Battle Saint, who had comprehended 2 top nomological laws, was and how he compared to his own 5 elemental laws. Straightforward. As expected of an expert who has reached this level. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint nodded in satisfaction. Chapter 1455. Let's end this quickly. Yi Chen pulled out the firmament sword, which was covered with a faint 5-colored airflow. The 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. Metal gave birth to water, water gave birth to wood, wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. When the 5 elements gathered, the power circulated endlessly and complemented each other. Its power was many times stronger than a single basic law. It could be said that when Yi Chen went all out, no advanced demigod would be a match for Yi Chen as long as he did not comprehend a law. Yi Chen did not go all out to kill the Greenhoof Battle Saint. He only used the law of fire. Of course, the Greenhoof Battle Saint was at the bottom of the advanced demigods. After all, he had just become an advanced demigod. The law of the 5 elements, not bad. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint laughed and a hammer appeared in his hand. Black and white airflow circled around the hammer, combining strength and softness. Let's fight. Yi Chen carried his sword and rushed toward the Yin-Yang Battle Saint. Good timing. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint met him head-on. Clang. The firmament sword and the hammer collided, producing an earth-shattering sound. The sky above the domain first changed from black and white, then the 5-colored airflow filled the air. The next moment, chaotic light exploded, as if the world was born. Yi Chen and the Yin-Yang Battle Saint were both sent flying. The ground below them continued to sink, extending endlessly. So terrifying. What level of battle is this? It has such powerful destructive power. The experts living in the domain were stunned. The material of the chaotic battlefield was very hard. They could not destroy it on a large scale even if they tried their best. However, the battle between the two had spread thousands of miles. This was a scene of destruction. Awesome. Yin-Yang world. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint's body shook. Black and white airflow spread out, shrouding Yi Chen. 5 elements world. A 5-colored airflow burst out from Yi Chen's body. Boom. 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 The Yin-Yang world and the 5 elements world continued to collide, neither giving way. Every time the two worlds collided, a large expanse of chaotic light sputtered. Wherever the two worlds hit, that place would disappear completely. Concealment. Suddenly, Yin-Yang Battle Saint disappeared. When he reappeared, he was behind Yi Chen. As if struck by lightning, Yi Chen's entire body was sent flying. Fortunately, he had the 5-element world and the Xian Wu sacred armor to protect him, so the Yin-Yang Battle Saint's hammer didn't kill him. He was only lightly injured. Whoosh. Transforming into a man of fire, Yi Chen counterattacked the Yin-Yang Battle Saint. However, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint, who had transformed into a white stream of air, was no slower than Yi Chen and was even more agile. You are no match for me. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint asked. That's not necessarily true. The flames on Yi Chen's body suddenly surged and faintly glowed green. Correspondingly, Yi Chen's speed also surged. Clang, clang, clang. Yi Chen slashed at the Yin-Yang Battle Saint 3 times, sending him into the ground. Wood gave birth to fire. The fire-traveling technique combined with the verdant wood body would make the flames more vigorous and faster. Again, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint broke out of the ground and attacked Yi Chen. The two fought from day to night and from night to day. They fought for 7 days and 7 nights, but neither of them was able to determine a winner. The surrounding area was a mess. Green Lotus Sword Saint, if you can take my hammer, I promise to cooperate with you to find him. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint raised the hammer in his hand. Black and white light flowed on the hammer, becoming neither black nor white. Gradually, it turned grey, a terrifying grey. The power of the yin and yang laws. Yin-Yang Battle Saint was the same as Yi Chen. Neither of them could fuse the laws together, which was something only true gods could do. However, there was nothing absolute in this world. Their seas of soul actually had the power of fusing laws, which was formed naturally. It was like putting black water and white water together. They would naturally fuse, and it was not something that could be controlled. Come. The 5-colored stream of air disappeared from the firmament sword in Yi Chen's hand and was replaced by a dazzling 5-colored light. The power of the 5 elements laws. Boom. The entire area shook, and a huge crater appeared in the center. Violent chaotic shockwaves radiated in all directions with the two of them at the center. Countless experts could not escape in time and were annihilated by the chaotic shockwaves. A thick layer of the ground was also shaved off by the chaotic shockwaves. This was a battle of the pinnacle, a battle that ordinary demigods could not imagine. The power of the yin-yang laws and the five elements laws could already rival ordinary powerful demigods to a certain extent. It was just that it could not last for long. About 1/3 of it has been used. In Yi Chen's Sea of Soul, 1/3 of the five-colored light between the five elements laws had disappeared. This made Yi Chen's heart ache. It would take a long time to accumulate the power again. In the future, unless it was absolutely necessary, he would use the power of the five elements laws less. Haha, this is great, this is great. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint put away his hammer and laughed out loud. Yin-Yang Battle Saint, I don't know if you will keep your word. Yi Chen was still wary of the Yin-Yang Battle Saint. If the other party did not cooperate, there was nothing he could do. Don't worry, I will keep my word. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint immediately ordered people to find out about Murong Qingcheng. 1 month later. I'm sorry, there is no one you are looking for, and there is no news about her. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint shook his head. There is no one. In fact, during this period of time, Yi Chen had also been searching in the first domain. Through the water world, he could explore a large area at once. Unfortunately, Murong Qingcheng was indeed not in the first domain, and there was no news about her. Could she be in the chaotic sea? Yi Chen's expression was a bit ugly. The chaotic sea was boundless, and it was many times larger than the chaotic continent. Searching for her by himself was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Is this person very important to you? The Yin-Yang Battle Saint asked. Yi Chen nodded, very important. You can go to the chaotic forest or the chaotic mountain range to search, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint suggested. The chaotic continent was very large, and the 99 domains were only a relatively safe area. The chaotic forest and the chaotic mountain range were much more dangerous. Chaotic creatures roamed freely inside, and there were even level 7 and level 8 creatures. It was not impossible for level 9 creatures to appear. All right, then I will take my leave. Yi Chen planned to wait a little longer. If there was no news of Murong Qingcheng in the 99 domains, he was prepared to enter the chaotic forest and chaotic mountain range to search for Murong Qingcheng. He believed that with his strength, there should not be too much danger. Be careful. I have been to the chaotic forest a few times, and it gives me a very dangerous feeling. You should know what a place that can make me feel dangerous means. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint reminded Yi Chen. Understood, thank you for the reminder. A place that could make the Yin-Yang Battle Saint feel dangerous was definitely not an ordinary place. There must be level 8 creatures, or even a level 8 king of chaotic creatures. If he encountered a level 9 creature, he could only resign himself to fate. A level 9 creature was an existence comparable to a powerful demigod. It was not something that the current Yi Chen could contend with. Chapter 1456. It was one thing for his subordinates to search for him and another thing for himself. After spending 10 years, Yi Chen had searched all 99 domains of the chaotic continent. Unfortunately, there was no sign of Murong Qingcheng. There were only 2 explanations for this situation. First, Murong Qingcheng was already dead. Second, Murong Qingcheng wasn't in the 99 domains. Yi Chen hoped it was the latter. Since he had searched all 99 domains, Yi Chen could only place his target on the chaotic forest and chaotic mountain range. First was the chaotic forest. The chaotic forest was located on the west side of the chaotic continent. Its area was larger than all 99 domains combined. The chaotic forest was shrouded in fog all day. Unless one reached the level of Yi Chen or the Yin-Yang Battle Saint, not many dared to enter. In the 5-element space, Xu Jing was still cultivating. Yi Chen didn't hesitate and entered the chaotic forest. So quiet. Once he entered the chaotic forest, Yi Chen felt like he had entered another world. His soul force swept out and everything was covered in fog. A world of water filled the air and the reflected images were distorted. The chaotic forest had its own set of laws that could distort Yi Chen's law of water. Traveling through the forest, Yi Chen felt a bit depressed. The chaotic forest was a world of its own. The trees were so tall that they reached the clouds. Each tree was several miles or even dozens of miles thick. An extremely dense vitality was emitted, forming a fog. Sigh, 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 sigh. Just as Yi Chen passed by a large tree, a large head bit over. A fishy smell assaulted his nose, making Yi Chen feel slightly disgusted. The 5-element space spread out and blocked the bite. Yi Chen couldn't help but look at the large tree. A green python that was several hundred meters thick coiled around the tree. At first glance, one would think it was a giant vine. 8th level chaos creature, chaos poison python. 8th level chaos creatures were equivalent to high-level demigods. However, any 8th level chaos creature was stronger than normal high-level demigods because they were born with the power of laws. For example, the chaos poison python was born with the law of poison. Although the level of the law of poison wasn't high, it was very threatening. As long as one wasn't a powerful demigod, one bite would definitely kill them. As expected of the chaos forest, Yi Chen did not dare to be careless. He had never fought with a level 8 chaos creature before, so he did not know how strong the other party was. Once it missed its target, the chaos poisonous python opened its mouth and spat out a purple whirlwind. This purple whirlwind was extremely smelly, as if it was made up of all the stinkiest things in the world. Just one whiff of it would make one feel as if they would fall into hell and never be able to reincarnate. Instead of dodging the purple whirlwind, Yi Chen activated the 5 elemental laws. The 5 elemental world expanded ferociously. Not only did it disperse the purple whirlwind, it even struck the chaos poison python's body. The primal chaos venomous python was sent flying away along with the tree that was wrapped around it. Not bad, but not my match. Yi Chen reckoned that level 8 chaos creatures should be equivalent to relatively powerful high-level demigods. Some of the stronger ones were equivalent to top-notch high-level demigods. A level 8 king of chaos creatures was equivalent to a peak high-level demigod. Although the chaotic forest was large, Yi Chen's scouting speed was fast. After 200 years, Yi Chen had already explored most of the chaotic forest and fought with countless chaotic life forms. There were level 6 chaos creatures, level 7 chaos creatures, and level 8 chaos creatures. There was even a level 8 king of chaos creatures. A level 8 king of chaos creatures was only slightly weaker than Yi Chen. The power of laws it contained was very dense and it was hard to kill. After 300 years, Yi Chen had searched the entire chaotic forest once, but he still couldn't find any trace of Murong Qingcheng. Thinking about it, in such a harsh situation, even supremes couldn't survive and even demigods couldn't survive. What Yi Chen didn't know was that there was a place deep in the chaotic forest that he hadn't explored yet. The fog there was 100 times thicker than other places. The strangest thing was that the fog could reflect light. If one didn't enter it, they wouldn't be able to notice this place and it was very easy to overlook. In the thick fog, there was a black monster the size of a mountain lying there sleeping. The air it exhaled was the fog. Chaotic mountain range. Although he knew that it was unlikely for Murong Qingcheng to be in the chaotic forest or chaotic mountain range, Yi Chen still wanted to look for her. Compared to the chaotic forest, the chaotic mountain range was much hotter. There was plenty of light and there were fewer chaotic creatures here. After 150 years, Yi Chen arrived at the depths of the chaotic mountain range. So hot. Yi Chen discovered that the closer he got to the depths of the chaotic mountain range, the hotter the temperature became. This kind of temperature was no longer a normal temperature, it was a temperature that could annihilate a demigod. Gradually, the scarlet red ground was replaced by a magma lake. This was an incomparably huge magma lake. It was blood red in color and endless flames were spewing out from the magma lake, forming boundless waves of fire. The 5 elements world unfolded and Yi Chen passed through the waves of fire. It's impossible for anyone to be here. It seems like Murong Qingcheng isn't in the primal chaos continent. While heaving a sigh of relief, Yi Chen began to worry. If Murong Qingcheng wasn't in the primal chaos continent, where could she be? He continued to search carefully. Yi Chen didn't want to let go of any possibility. Unknowingly, Yi Chen arrived at the center of the magma lake. The temperature here was already close to the limit of a mid-level demigod. Only high-level demigods could fly here and not get hurt. He didn't know if it was Yi Chen's illusion, but Yi Chen vaguely sensed that a terrifying crisis was approaching. Rumble. Just as Yi Chen raised his guard, a monstrous wave of fire soared into the sky. Accompanying the wave of fire was a blood-red dragon. This dragon was too big, estimated to be thousands of miles long. In the primal chaos battlefield, an honorable could only maintain the figure of an ordinary person and couldn't change too much. Even a demigod could only change a little. Therefore, the bigger the body, the stronger the strength of the chaos creature. A chaos creature that was thousands of miles long was definitely not as simple as a level 8 chaos creature. It was also unlikely that it was the king of level 8 chaos creatures. After taking a closer look, Yi Chen couldn't help but be shocked. Level 9 chaos creature, Chaos Fire Dragon. A level 9 chaos creature was comparable to a powerful demigod. This was definitely not something that Yi Chen could contend with. Run. Without any other thoughts, Yi Chen used the fire travel technique and fled frantically. Roar. The Chaos Fire Dragon roared into the sky, and the terrifying sound wave quickly caught up with Yi Chen. Yi Chen felt as if his soul was about to float away, and his entire body fell uncontrollably into the magma lake. Too strong. Is this the power of a level 9 chaos creature? Yi Chen was shocked. He didn't stop using the fire travel technique and shuttled through the magma lake. As the magma lake was formed by the convergence of flames, the speed of using the fire travel technique was even faster. However, the Chaos Fire Dragon was even faster. In a short while, it caught up with Yi Chen and clawed at him. Bang! The magma lake shook, and Yi Chen, who had turned into a flaming man, exploded. Fortunately, he quickly condensed his body and continued to flee. I can't stop. Yi Chen felt the crisis of death. He had used the power of the 5 elemental laws just now. If it was just the fire travel technique, he would have been killed. Chapter 1457. 5 Elemental Fire Escape. With no other choice, Yi Chen used the 5 elemental laws again. His body emitted a hazy rainbow light, and his speed increased by 10 times. In a flash, he was 10,000 miles away. The Chaos Fire Dragon did not give up. It turned into a fire dragon and chased after him. Its fire traveling technique was no lower than Yi Chen's, but it was not as good as the 5 elemental fire escape. After 10 minutes, Yi Chen completely lost the Chaos Fire Dragon and came to the edge of the chaotic mountain range. That was close. Letting out a heavy breath, Yi Chen still had some lingering fear in his heart. Level 9 creatures were too strong. There was no way to fight back. Only the merged laws could be relied on. The 5 elemental laws have been used up. It's not good to take risks now. Looking at his sea of soul, there was only a faint trace of the rainbow light between the 5 elemental laws. After all, the power of 5 elemental laws was not fused by Yi Chen. It was formed naturally, and its quantity was limited. If Yi Chen had fused the 5 elemental laws on his own initiative, then the power of 5 elemental laws would be practically limitless, just like how he could use fire and water elemental laws. Green Lotus Sword Saint, I plan to go to the Scarlet Continent. Are you interested? On this day, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint suddenly came to visit. Scarlet Continent. Yi Chen had never heard of it before. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint smiled. It seems that you haven't heard of the Scarlet Continent. That's right, most people haven't. Let me explain. Those who come to the chaotic battlefield all want to enter the legendary Heaven Realm and continue cultivating. Those who are not strong enough can only rely on luck. For example, gathering all the gold chaos symbols, and blue chaos symbols. But for the two of us, our strength is enough. In fact, as long as we have the strength of a high-level demigod, we are qualified to enter the Heaven Realm. We don't need the gold chaos symbols or the blue chaos symbols. Oh, I see. This was the first time Yi Chen had heard of it. The Yin-Yang Battle Sage continued, in order to enter the Heaven Realm, we must reach the Crimson Continent. The Primal Chaos Talisman is actually a one-time use space-time teleportation talisman. However, it is passive and will only activate after 100,000 years. With the strength of the two of us, we can definitely pass through the Sea of Chaos and reach the Crimson Continent by ourselves. What kind of place is the Scarlet Continent? Yi Chen asked. The Crimson Continent is the place closest to the Heaven Realm. As it is close to the Heaven Realm, it is extremely fertile. There are countless treasures and opportunities. Some lucky people might appear on the Crimson Continent when they first arrive at the Primal Chaos battlefield. The person you are looking for might also be on the Crimson Continent. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint explained. How far is the Crimson Continent from the Chaos mainland? Yi Chen was tempted. The Chaos Ocean was boundless. If he was unlucky, he might not be able to find anyone in the Chaos Ocean even after 10 million years. He might as well go to the Crimson Continent to search. If he was not on the Crimson Continent, he could just leave the Crimson Continent and continue searching. If he could find him, everyone would be happy, and he could stay on the Crimson Continent. I don't know about this. I only know that the Scarlet Continent is in the east of the Primal Chaos Continent. Yin-Yang Battle Saint shook his head. All right, let's set off as soon as possible. Yi Chen did not want to waste a single moment. No problem, we can set off tomorrow. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint smiled. The Chaos Ocean was full of dangers. Although he had the strength to look down on high-level demigods, he could not guarantee that he could reach the Crimson Continent safely. However, with the addition of Yi Chen, the danger would be much lower. If the two of them worked together, they could even last a few rounds against ordinary powerful demigods. The next day, the two of them set off. Very few people knew about this. With the departure of the two of them, the Primal Chaos Continent was destined to be chaotic once again. Previously, with the two of them around, many major forces did not dare to act recklessly, afraid of angering the two of them. The Chaos Ocean was turbulent, as if there was no end to it. Green Lotus Sword Saint, this is the divine wine that I personally brewed. Try it. While flying at high speed, the Yin-Yang Battle Saint tossed a wine gourd to Yi Chen. Taking the wine gourd, Yi Chen took a sip. Good wine. As soon as the wine entered his stomach, Yi Chen felt warm all over his body. It should be known that at his current realm, there were very few wines that could make him feel this way. Correspondingly, the wine that could make him feel this way must be extraordinary. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint said proudly, I spent 1,000 years brewing this divine wine. There are only 10 gourds. Give me another gourd. Yi Chen smacked his lips. This wine was really good. If you want it, exchange it with something. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint rolled his eyes at Yi Chen. Did he really think that divine wine was cabbages? He could brew it, but the materials were difficult to find. At most, I'll help you find the materials. Yi Chen laughed. After spending some time together, the two of them were considered familiar and appreciated each other. Wait until you find the person. The two of them chatted as they flew toward the east. In the far east, there was a Crimson Continent. Although it was called a continent, it was very high above sea level. The edge of the continent adjacent to the coast was clearly covered with cliffs. In the middle of the Crimson Continent was a river. This river was very long and just happened to divide the continent into two. The continent on the left was very bright, with a clear sky. The continent on the right was shrouded in darkness. In the corner of the continent on the left, there were many ancient-looking castles standing there. In one of the castles, a beautiful woman was meditating. In front of her was an incense burner. The incense burner emitted a fragrance that made people feel relaxed and happy. The speed of thinking naturally increased by 100 or even 1,000 times, which was very beneficial to cultivation. Sister Murong, this year's ancient fragrance pill is here. This is yours. A beautiful woman in a light yellow dress walked in and handed a pill to the woman. Thank you, sister. The woman opened her eyes, a smile on her face. The woman was Murong Qingcheng. Her cultivation was many times higher than when she entered the Primal Chaos battlefield. She was already at the peak of legend rank. It is said that next year, Our ancient fragrance castle will have an important person descend to select outstanding talents to be groomed. Sister Murong has improved so quickly, you might have a chance to be chosen. The beautiful woman said enviously. Murong Qingcheng shook her head. I don't want to be chosen. The less trouble, the better. Why? The beautiful woman felt a little strange. I'm waiting for someone. Murong Qingcheng said bluntly. Waiting for who? He shouldn't be in the Crimson Continent. Our luck is good. After 100,000 years, we can directly enter the Heaven Realm. It might not be the same for other places. We need to gather a set of golden primal chaos talismans or a set of blue primal chaos talismans. There might not even be 1 in 1,000 people who can gather both. The beautiful woman shook her head. I believe he will come. Murong Qingcheng's expression was firm. The Crimson Continent was very big. There were many places that were similar to castles. Some were towers, some were tribes, and some were crystal spheres. Every place was shrouded in a mysterious power. This power was incomparably profound and could actually isolate the primal chaos law. Of course, the primal chaos law was everywhere and had a much larger range. Chapter 1458. The primal chaos ocean was extremely dangerous. The longer one drifted, the more dangers one would encounter. In 1,000 years, Yi Chen and the Yin-Yang Battle Saint had encountered 3 level 9 chaos creatures. If it weren't for their outstanding strength and the fact that their soul seas contained the 5 elemental laws and the Yin-Yang laws, they would have died 3 times already. That was close. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint tossed a gourd of divine wine to Yi Chen. This was the last 2 gourds of divine wine. Gulp. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint took a sip first, wiped the corner of his mouth, and said, I underestimated the danger of the chaotic ocean. The chances of a high-level demigod reaching the Crimson Continent alive are very low. Staying in the chaotic continent is actually the best choice. Maybe we're just unlucky, Yi Chen said after receiving the divine wine. Then we're really unlucky to encounter 3 level 9 chaos creatures in 1,000 years. If it were anyone else, they would have died long ago. The Yin-Yang Battle Saint wore a helpless expression. While the 2 of them were rushing to the Crimson Continent, others were also rushing to the Crimson Continent. Some were already close to the Crimson Continent, while others had just set off. What the 2 of them didn't know was that there wasn't just 1 chaos continent in the primal chaos battlefield. There were a total of 8 of them, and they were located in 8 different directions of the Scarlet Continent. Due to the distance, the 8 chaos continents wouldn't interact with each other. Of the 8 chaos continents, Yi Chen's direction had the least people. There were only 2, Yi Chen and the Yin-Yang Battle Sage. The Chaos Continent with the most people had 9 life forms heading towards the Scarlet Continent. Rumble. The huge waves reached the sky, and an incomparably huge sea snake darted out of the sea, pouncing toward the 3 universe life forms. Level 9 Chaos Creature, Chaos Sea Divine Snake. Run. Of these 3 cosmic beings, the first 2 had comprehended the law of light and darkness and the law of life and death respectively. The last one was the strangest. His entire body was wrapped in a terrifying energy. The cosmic life form that comprehended the law of light and darkness turned into a beam of chaotic light and shot out. The cosmic life form that comprehended the law of life and death turned into an incorporeal body that existed between life and death, like a ghost. As for the last one, he actually did not comprehend the laws, but his strength was not the slightest bit weaker than the first 2. In fact, he even surpassed them. Whoosh. The 3 of them were extremely fast, and it didn't take long for them to shake off the Chaos Sea God Snake. Battle Sage Huangshan, your divine power is truly powerful. We had to use the light and darkness rule power and the life and death rule power to escape from the Chaos Sea Divine Snake, but you only need to use your divine power, and you can maintain it for a long time. The cosmic life form that comprehended the law of light and darkness said enviously. Battle Sage Royal Heart was a cosmic life form with a large head and eyes that looked like giant gems. He said proudly, once you activate the light of the soul, you can also refine divine power. Activating light of the soul is easier said than done. I really don't know how a freak like you did it. Haha, why do I feel that it's very easy? On the contrary, comprehending the laws is much more difficult. Battle Sage Royal Heart was both proud and envious. If he could comprehend the principle, his strength would rise to an extremely terrifying level, enough to rival a powerful demigod. Battle Sage Royal Heart was not the only one who had refined divine power. In another direction, there was also a female battle sage called Divine Dancing Archer Sage who had also refined divine power. When she shot an arrow, it could destroy and pierce through everything. Brother, one day, I will become a true god and revive you. The godly dancing archer sage looked down at the jade pendant on her chest. It was a gift from her brother. Ancient Fragrance Castle. A green-haired woman dressed in azure clothes said to Murong Qingcheng, "You are very lucky. Your aptitude can only be considered ordinary compared to others, but in our ancient fragrance castle, it is an extremely good aptitude. Our ancient fragrance castle does not value cultivation aptitude, but rather your innate constitution. The better your innate constitution, the faster your progress in our ancient fragrance castle." Why does our ancient fragrance castle not value cultivation aptitude? Murong Qingcheng asked doubtfully. The green-haired woman said, "There are 3,000 great Daos, and every one of them can be walked to the extreme. The Dao of our ancient fragrance castle is originally different from other Daos. As for the essence of it, even I only know a little. This is an ancient fragrance divine vein diagram. How much you can comprehend will depend on your luck." The green-haired woman waved her right hand, and a diagram fell into Murong Qingcheng's hand. This was a diagram of fresh flowers. The fresh flowers in the diagram looked vivid and lifelike, even more realistic than real fresh flowers. But upon closer inspection, one could see that the lines of the fresh flowers were very simple, and only a few strokes were needed. Murong Qingcheng exclaimed in her heart. Although her cultivation level was not high, she could more or less see that this diagram was very profound. It could only be understood, but not explained. Many thanks, Lady Qinghua. Murong Qingcheng kept the ancient fragrance divine vein diagram. The green-haired woman descended from the heaven realm and was a powerful demigod. And the ancient fragrance castle belonged to the mighty true god Ancient Fragrance. Back then, when Murong Qingcheng was teleported to the Scarlet Continent, she caught the eye of the true god Ancient Fragrance's envoy and was brought to the Ancient Fragrance Castle. She mysteriously became a member of the Ancient Fragrance Castle. Of course, it was also because of this that her cultivation was able to improve by leaps and bounds. In a short 20,000 years, she had already reached the peak of the legendary Paragon realm. In these 1,000 years, her improvement was even faster. Under the guidance of the green-haired woman, Murong Qingcheng successfully became a demigod. Murong Qingcheng had a feeling that if she could comprehend this ancient fragrance divine vein diagram, she should be able to become a beginner demigod. Another 5,000 years passed. Yi Chen and the yin-yang battle saint finally saw the Scarlet Continent. From afar, the Scarlet Continent gave off a very oppressive feeling. It was as if a continent was about to break out of the water. It was incomparably huge and majestic. There really is a Scarlet Continent, haha. The yin-yang battle saint was excited. In reality, he did not dare to confirm the existence of the Scarlet Continent and had only heard of it. Yes. Yi Chen was also excited. He had some doubts about the yin-yang battle saint's words, but he felt that there was enough time. It did not matter if he accompanied the yin-yang battle saint. Let's go. Faster. The yin-yang battle saint's speed soared as he swept toward the Scarlet Continent. Yi Chen followed closely behind. In a short while, the two of them arrived at the Scarlet Continent. Buzz. An invisible force pulled the two of them to the left continent where there was plenty of light. Two more. Not bad. Around the two of them, powerful life forms appeared one after another. Yi Chen and the yin-yang battle saint were shocked to discover that these life forms were no weaker than level 9 chaos creatures. They were obviously powerful demigods. With so many powerful demigods appearing at once, it was hard for the two of them not to be shocked. "You are?" the yin-yang battle saint asked. A female demigod with a pair of butterfly wings on her back said, "We are the messengers of the true gods. We are responsible for receiving you here. Messengers of the true gods. How many true gods are there? Yi Chen was very curious. He wanted to know how many true gods there were. A powerful demigod the size of a small mountain said, "The heaven realm has a total of 7 main gods, namely the Chaos main god, Sword god, Demon god, Undying main god, Destruction main god, Life main god, and Death main god. Every main god has a certain number of follower gods. As for how many true gods there are, we are also not clear, because some true gods like to travel alone, no one knows where they are." Chapter 1459. To a certain extent, true gods were no longer afraid of the law of chaos, especially the main gods. They had their own main god world, where the law of chaos could not interfere with them. They could completely control the cycle of life and death in the main god world. Although ordinary true gods weren't as powerful as main gods, they could still roam the primal chaos. The primal chaos was too vast. Even true gods couldn't roam the entire primal chaos. Fortunately, true gods had endless lives. They could use their endless lives to explore the primal chaos. Since ancient times, many true gods had been born in the heaven realm. Some true gods were unknown. Other than the main god of chaos, no one knew how many true gods there were. Sword god, Demon god. Yi Chen's heart skipped a beat. He had never heard of Sword god. Demon god was the main god of demons. Of course, this was only Yi Chen's personal opinion. Perhaps the demons were just a random race created by Demon god. After all, as the main god, Demon god could not only create races in the heaven and earth universe. Main god, subordinate god, this is so interesting. The heaven realm is greater and more charming than I imagined. Yin-yang battle Saint yearned. A powerful illusory demigod said coldly, "Don't be happy too early. Although geniuses like you are rare, there are still many of them in all the universes. Moreover, a new batch of universe geniuses is born every million years. Once you enter the heaven realm, you will no longer be as unique as before. If you don't work hard enough, you may soon become a second-rate character. What's the point if there is no challenge?" Yin-yang battle Saint did not take the other's words to heart. Among the 7 overgods, the Chaos overgod is the supreme overgod and is absolutely neutral. The other 6 overgods oppose each other. Our Radiance Divine Alliance has 3 overgods, namely the Sword God, the Immortality overgod, and the Life overgod. The life seeds of the 2 of you are the life seeds of our Radiance Divine Alliance, which is why you were drawn to the Radiance continent, which is the Darkness continent. According to the path of your cultivation, you can choose to join a true god. How do we choose? Yi Chen asked. For now, you won't be choosing a true god. The true gods will choose you first. If only one true god chooses you, you can only join that true god. If there are more than one, you can choose one of them. There are 3 overgod stones here. They are the Divine Sword Stone, the Immortal Stone, and the Stone of Life. A powerful demigod filled with boundless vitality pointed at the Yin-yang battle saint. The Yin-yang battle saint took a step forward. The next moment, 3 mysterious stones appeared out of thin air above the Yin-yang battle saint's head. One of the stones lit up. It was the Stone of Life. Your path of cultivation is suitable for the core god of life's deity system. Now, you will begin the second stage of the test. The Divine Sword Stone and the Stone of Eternity disappeared, and smaller stones appeared all around the Stone of Life. Each stone carried the aura of the Overgod of Life, but they were all slightly different. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A total of 3 stones lit up. The True God of all things, the Azure God, and the Skylark God are all suitable for your path of cultivation. Please choose one. The Yin-yang battle saint did not speak. He stared at the 3 stones. Although they were only 3 stones, he could see many things. These stones seemed to have been specially refined by a true god. Even if it was just a trace of aura, one could see endless possibilities, see the changes of all things, and see a part of the cultivation path of this true god. It was mysterious and unfathomable. Since I am suitable for the core god of life's deity system, can I choose the core god of life? The yin-yang battle saint suddenly asked. No. The powerful demigod filled with boundless vitality said, only if the stone of life keeps flashing would it mean that the stone of life values you. Unfortunately, it doesn't. All right then, I choose the true God of all things. The yin-yang battle saint said. Welcome to the temple of the universe. The powerful demigod who was the size of a small mountain revealed a smile. The yin-yang battle saint was quite talented. As the messenger of the true God of all things, he naturally hoped that the yin-yang battle saint would choose the temple of the universe. It's your turn. The powerful demigods looked at Yi Chen. Compared to the yin-yang battle saint, Yi Chen was clearly a demigod who cultivated the sword Dao. He should be suitable for the sword god deity system. Of course, those who cultivated the sword Dao did not necessarily have to join the sword god deity system. There were also sword cultivators in other deities. Yi Chen took a step forward. The next moment, 3 master godstones appeared above Yi Chen's head. Buzz, 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 buzz. What shocked the powerful demigods was that the sword godstone and the immortal stone actually flashed at the same time. Even the stone of life lit up. This meant that the sword godstone and the immortal stone had chosen Yi Chen, and Yi Chen could also join the core god of life's deity system. This situation was almost impossible. The yin-yang battle saint's eyes almost popped out. He was both envious and shocked. Which deity system will you choose? A powerful demigod asked. Yi Chen could choose any of the 3 deities. Yi Chen said, I choose the core god, sword god. There was no need to consider at all. Yi Chen would naturally choose the sword god. As for the sword god's follower god, Yi Chen didn't even consider it. Are you not going to consider the immortal deity? A powerful demigod filled with an immortal aura said, unwilling to give up. Being chosen by the immortal stone meant that Yi Chen was the best choice. It would be a pity not to fight for it. There's no need. Yi Chen shook his head. That's good. Sigh. The powerful demigod filled with an immortal aura sighed and said in a loud voice, Shadowless Sword Saint, are you still not coming out? Your sword god palace has gained another member. Without a sound, a powerful demigod with a sharp aura appeared. Who is it? As he spoke, his gaze was fixed on Yi Chen. Haha, good. Welcome to our sword god palace. Let me tell you, our sword god palace is the hardest to join among the 6 core gods. This is because every member of our sword god palace is a true expert of the sword Dao. Alright, we all know how powerful the sword god palace is. Can you stop showing off? The other powerful demigods were extremely envious. Haha. The shadowless sword saint laughed loudly. The woman in your 5 elemental space should come out too. Let's see which true god is suitable for her. Yi Chen's 5 elemental space could fool yin-yang battle sages, but it couldn't fool the powerful demigods present. After a while, the results of Xu Jing's test came out. Xu Jing was also suitable for the sword god pantheon, but the sword godstone didn't choose her. The ones who chose her were the desolate god, the barbarian god, and the beast god. Xu Jing chose the beast god. Come, follow me to the sword god palace. The shadowless sword saint pulled Yi Chen away. Wait. Yi Chen suddenly said, have you seen her? Yi Chen waved his right hand, and the image of Murong Qingcheng appeared. I've seen her before. She joined our ancient fragrance castle. Our ancient fragrance castle belongs to the great true god ancient fragrance, and true god ancient fragrance belongs to the sword god pantheon, the powerful demigod with butterfly wings on her back said. She was the envoy of true god ancient fragrance. Chapter 1460. Just like that, Yi Chen was in the sword god palace, Xu Jing was in the beast god valley, and Murong Qingcheng was in the ancient fragrant castle. Although the 3 of them were not under the same true god, they were from the same celestial system and could meet each other frequently. Yi Chen gave Murong Qingcheng a lot of the divine power crystals that he had obtained to help her become an elementary demigod as soon as possible. Currently, Murong Qingcheng was a demigod, and Xu Jing was slightly weaker, at the peak of the legendary supremacy. However, after joining the Beast God Valley, There should be a period of rapid development, and it would not be difficult for her to reach the demigod level. After getting rid of his worries, Yi Chen started to calm down and focus on his cultivation. Just like what the Sword God emissary Shadowless Sword Saint had said, it was very difficult to join the Sword God Palace. In the entire Scarlet Continent, the Sword God Palace only had Yi Chen. The other true gods had more or less some members under them. When the Primal Chaos battlefield opened, many people were directly teleported to the Scarlet Continent, and Murong Qingcheng was one of them. What is a sword? A will that can move unhindered in the Primal Chaos. The reason why the members of the Sword God Palace can fight 1 against 10 is not because of our high cultivation, but because we have a sharp sword in our hearts that can cut through all restraints. The Shadowless Sword Saint thought very highly of Yi Chen. In the Heaven Domain, there were not many members of the Sword God Palace. Although he was a Sword God emissary, there was nothing special about him. As long as one was a member of the Sword God Palace, anyone could become a Sword God emissary. However, Yi Chen was different. Since he was chosen by the Sword God Stone and the Immortal Stone, and the Stone of Life did not reject him, it meant that he was really special. He might even become a peak figure in the Sword God Palace and lead the Sword God Palace into battle. Such a person naturally had to be treated with caution. Is it because of the Sword of Soul? Yi Chen said. That's right. Although the Sword of the Soul is also part of the Light of the Soul, it's definitely the best of the Light of the Soul. With the Sword of the Soul as the core, the divine power condensed is invincible and unstoppable. You haven't reached the realm of the Sword of the Soul yet, and you haven't condensed divine power, so the gap between you and others isn't that great. Once you reach that stage, the gap will start to show. Before that, you must think of a way to research Heart Force and focus most of your energy on Heart Force, with laws taking second place. In fact, although your current realm of laws isn't comparable to most powerful demigods, most demigods haven't comprehended the 5 elements or the laws of yin and yang like you have. For example, I only comprehended the laws of shadow and wind. The Shadowless Sword Saint's figure flickered, and suddenly, 8 Shadowless Sword Saints appeared. 7 of them were shadows. When the shadows dissipated, the Shadowless Sword Saint turned and a whirlwind rushed into the sky. The Shadowless Sword Saint's figure immediately became blurry, and he came and went without a trace. This was the advanced wind walking technique, which had already been integrated into the laws of wind. What a high realm! Yi Chen was secretly shocked. He could see that the Shadowless Sword Saint's 7 shadows all had very high combat power, and they were almost no weaker than the original body. Moreover, the Shadowless Sword Saint's wind walking technique was integrated with the laws of wind. Not to mention chasing the opponent, he did not even know where the opponent was. How could he chase after the opponent? This had already reached another level. The Shadowless Sword Saint explained, when you reach the level of the Sword of Soul, it will be much easier to comprehend the laws. At that time, you will be one of the strongest demigods. The Shadowless Sword Saint was very envious of Yi Chen and the Yin-Yang Battle Sage. Of the 2 of them, one had comprehended the laws of 5 elements, and the other had comprehended the laws of Yin-Yang. When they condensed their divine power, it would be amazing. This word was personally written by the Great Sword God. Although it is only a projection, and the real body is in the Heaven Domain's Sword God Palace, to you and me, it is still a great inspiration. You can look at it often and find out the mysteries within. The Shadowless Sword Saint brought Yi Chen to the core of the Sword God Palace. There was a stone tablet there, and the word sword was written on it. The word sword had a total of 9 strokes. Yi Chen realized that this word only had 1 stroke. Although it was only 1 stroke, it did not affect the overall effect. It was as if the word sword was in a complex space-time, and the connection could be seen but not found. How amazing! Yi Chen was completely immersed in it, and he did not even know when the Shadowless Sword Saint left. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed, and Yi Chen woke up. 1,000 years have passed. Yi Chen could not feel the passage of time at all, and he did not feel that he had comprehended anything. It was as if 1,000 years had passed in the blink of an eye. That's normal. When I first saw this word, it took me 3,000 years to wake up. You are already very fast. The The shadowless sword saint suddenly appeared and said with a smile. Time no longer had much meaning to demigods. The golden martial path Yuan spirit could allow the weakest elementary demigod to live for more than 100 million years. Every once in a while, Yi Chen would come to observe the word sword. The first time, he woke up after 1,000 years. The second time, it was 800 years. The third time, it was 500 years. The fourth time, it was 300 years. The fifth time, it was 100 years. The sixth time, it was also 100 years. Unknowingly, it had been 40,000 years since Yi Chen came to the primal chaos battlefield. Straight but not straight, curved but not curved. There is a curve in the straight, and a straight in the curve. Illusory and real change, and it all depends on one's heart. As he chanted, a faint misty light was emitted from within Yi Chen's body, and it was abnormally sharp. This is really special. In such a short time, he found the entrance to the Sword of Soul. The shadowless sword saint praised. It was very difficult to reach the Sword of Soul level. Some people spent countless years and couldn't even find the entrance. Yi Chen hadn't reached the Sword of Soul level yet, but at least he found the entrance. As long as the time was right, he would definitely step into this realm. When Yi Chen woke up, the misty light suddenly dissipated. On the 45,000 years since Yi Chen came to the primal chaos battlefield, a powerful demigod from the Sword God Palace descended. Shadowless Sword Saint, long time no see. This powerful demigod clearly recognized the Shadowless Sword Saint and smiled. The Shadowless Sword Saint sized up the other party. Sweet Dew Sword Saint, I didn't expect you to descend. The Sweet Dew Sword Saint's status in the Sword God Palace was higher than his. She had comprehended the law of water, the law of wood, and the law of wind. It's rare for my Sword God Palace to have a new member. How is his talent? The Sweet Dew Sword Saint asked. His talent is very good. He has comprehended the law of 5 elements and has already found the entrance to the Sword of Soul. Oh, really? He has actually comprehended the law of 5 elements. The Sweet Dew Sword Saint was somewhat curious. She spread her divine energy and instantly discovered Yi Chen, who was observing the word. Transforming into a drop of sweet dew, the Sweet Dew Sword Saint instantly appeared above Yi Chen. He didn't disturb Yi Chen and just waited quietly. After 100 years, Yi Chen woke up and discovered the Sweet Dew Sword Saint and the Shadowless Sword Saint. The Shadowless Sword Saint introduced, "This is the Sweet Dew Sword Saint. This time, he descended and brought you a Sword Dao divine inscription diagram. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask him. Naturally, you can also ask me." Sword Dao divine inscription diagrams were extremely precious. One could only bring them down with the permission of the higher-ups. Chapter 1461. Sword Type Divine Inscription Diagram. Yi Chen was puzzled. The Sweet Dew Sword Saint explained, every single sword type divine inscription diagram contains a sword type divine art. Only a true divinity of the sword would be able to create a sword type divine art. A divine art can contain any type of law. Look at my divine art, Sweet Dew. It contains the law of water, the law of wood and the law of wind. The Sweet Dew Sword Sage clenched her right hand, and a treasure sword condensed from Sweet Dew appeared. With a wave of the Sweet Dew sword, the void instantly became moist, and the ground was covered in sweet dew. Yi Chen suddenly discovered that his body was also sprinkled with the sweet dew, but he didn't have any reaction at all, as if the sweet dew had appeared out of thin air. Although the sweet dew did not display any killing power, Yi Chen did not believe that it did not have any power. It was clear that the Sweet Dew Sword Sage had shown mercy. Comprehending a divine art from the Sword Dao divine inscription diagrams varies from person to person. In truth, a true divine art requires a law of divinity. You possess the 5 elemental laws. If you can comprehend a divine art from the Sword Dao divine inscription diagrams, the might of that divine art would be inconceivable. Naturally, you've just started to comprehend a divine art, so your attainment would be very shallow. You still need time to perfect it. The Sweet Dew Sword Saint explained. At this moment, the Shadowless Sword Saint continued, other than this, the usage of the divine inscription diagrams isn't so simple. Even if one can't comprehend a divine art, as long as they can comprehend a trace of it, it would be extremely beneficial to one's cultivation base. Divine arts created by true divinities aren't only used for killing, they are also the essence of the martial Tao. Yi Chen nodded. Since it was a divine skill, it was naturally marvelous beyond words. With a wave of her right hand, a painting landed in Yi Chen's hand. The Sweet Dew Sword Saint spoke, "This is an initial level sword-type divine inscription diagram. Comprehend it well. As for what divine techniques you can comprehend, that will depend on your own luck." Yi Chen opened the painting and saw a few drops of blood on it. It was so simple that it made one's hair stand on end. How marvelous! With just one glance, Yi Chen was captivated. From these few drops of blood, he could see countless possibilities. The painting seemed simple, but the content contained within was unimaginable. Just like that, Yi Chen spent half of his time observing the word and the other half comprehending the divine inscription diagram. Comprehending a divine art from a divine inscription diagram was countless times more difficult compared to what Yi Chen had imagined. 15,000 years had passed, yet he had no clue at all. However, there seemed to be something new in his heart, and he would occasionally have a flash of inspiration. Shadowless Sword Saint, how long do you think it will take for him to comprehend the divine skill? In a pavilion of the Sword God Palace, the Sweet Dew Sword Saint and the Shadowless Sword Saint were drinking and chatting. Occasionally, they would look at Yi Chen's progress through space. After drinking a mouthful of wine, the Shadowless Sword Saint spoke in a low voice, "In our Sword God Palace, the fastest person to comprehend the first divine art is the idealistic Sword Saint. He spent 30,000 years. The second fastest is the incomparable Sword Saint, spending 35,000 years. As for the Green Lotus Sword Saint, his talent is extremely high. I estimate that he would also spend 50,000 years or less." The Sweet Dew Sword Saint nodded. Back then, the idealistic Sword Saint comprehended the laws of yin and yang, the incomparable Sword Saint comprehended the laws of life and death, while the Green Lotus Sword Saint comprehended the laws of the 5 elements. Their foundations are roughly the same, and the difficulty of comprehending a divine art is roughly the same as well. If there are no accidents, he should be able to comprehend his first divine art within 50,000 years. It could be said that comprehending a divine art wasn't difficult, but it wasn't simple either. Sometimes, with a flash of inspiration, a divine art might appear. Naturally, for the same divine inscription diagram, the divine art comprehended by each person would be different. Under the situation where the foundations were the same, depending on one's comprehension abilities, the divine art comprehended would be slightly weaker, slightly stronger, and also similar. However, the style of the divine art comprehended would be different. The Undying Deity Palace's luck is truly off the charts this time around. That divine dance archer saint, although he didn't comprehend any laws, he has condensed godly energy. His combat prowess is unrivaled in the entire primal chaos battlefield. The topic shifted to the divine dance archer saint as the Shadowless Sword Saint spoke. After condensing godly energy, comprehending the laws is only a matter of time. But after comprehending the laws, condensing godly energy would take a very long time. The Undying Deity Palace has truly picked up a treasure. The Sweet Dew Sword Saint sighed in admiration. The powers of the God Lords were all deity palaces. The Sword God Palace belonged to the Sword God Palace, the Undying God Palace belonged to the Undying God Palace, the Life God Palace belonged to the Life God Palace, the Devil God Palace belonged to the Devil God Palace, the Destruction God Palace belonged to the Destruction God Palace, the Death God Palace belonged to the Death God Palace, and the Primal Chaos God Palace belonged to the Primal Chaos God Palace. However, over at the Darkness Continent, the Destruction Deity Palace also has a new member that has condensed godly energy. His name is the Royal Heart Battle Sage. There are so many universes in the Primal Chaos battlefield, and the Primal Chaos battlefield only opens once every million years. It's inevitable that there would be some demon-level geniuses appearing. It's not worth being surprised. With regards to these demon-level geniuses, although the Sweet Dew Sword Saint was filled with admiration, he wouldn't be shocked. He had lived for countless years and had seen all sorts of characters before. The Sword God Palace's idealistic Sword Saint and lofty Sword Saint were both extremely outstanding characters. However, even now, they had yet to break through to the true God realm. Compared to a true god, geniuses weren't even worth mentioning. Year 65,000 since Yi Chen arrived at the primal chaos battlefield. Drifting blood. Staring at the few drops of blood on the painting, Yi Chen could feel a desolate and cruel aura. This aura grew stronger and stronger, causing Yi Chen to gain new insights with every passing moment. Year 68,000 in the primal chaos battlefield. A sharp aura suddenly gushed forth from Yi Chen as the few drops of blood flashed past. Hey! The hearts of the shadowless Sword Saint and the sweet dew Sword Saint jolted as they hurriedly glanced over. This aura. The shadowless Sword Saint had a look of bewilderment on his face. This is the sign of comprehending a divine art. He has already sensed the essence of the divine inscription painting. As long as the essence is present, no matter how the divine art transforms, its might would still be the same. Year 70,000 in the primal chaos battlefield. So this is the case. Yi Chen opened his eyes. He raised his right index and middle fingers and tapped out. Pu. In the air, a few drops of blood flashed past as the stench of blood permeated the air. Even though they were separated by spacetime, the shadowless Sword Saint and the sweet dew Sword Saint could still smell the stench of blood 25,000 years. He comprehended it faster than the idealistic Sword Saint and lofty Sword Saint. The shadowless Sword Saint and the sweet dew Sword Saint exchanged glances. The speed of comprehending the first divine art didn't mean that Yi Chen's comprehension was higher than the idealistic Sword Saint and the lofty Sword Saint. But at the very least, it meant that Yi Chen was a genius on the same level as the idealistic Sword Saint. After countless years, the idealistic Sword Saint and the lofty Sword Saint had long reached the pinnacle of the demigod realm. Below the true god realm, they were almost invincible. Is this the power of a divine art? The energy is completely restrained and condensed within a few drops of blood. The 5 elemental laws also naturally fused into it. Before this, Yi Chen's strongest attack was the 5 elemental laws. However, the 5 elemental laws required time to accumulate, and it was impossible for him to fight for a long period of time. Now that he had a divine art, things were different. He could completely maintain his peak combat prowess for a long period of time. Also, Yi Chen had yet to perfect this divine art, and there was still room for improvement. When the time came, the might of this divine art would surely be even more terrifying. Let's name this divine art Drifting Blood. Drifting blood, the blood of his enemies was drifting. Chapter 1462. The Radiance Continent and the Darkness Continent were separated by a mountain range called the Scarlet Mountain Range. Legend had it that the Scarlet Mountain Range was stained with the blood of a true god and contained divine stones. However, ordinary people couldn't enter the Scarlet Mountain Range. The pressure of the mountain range was enough to crush mid-level demigods to death. Only high-level demigods could resist the pressure. A streak of fire flew up the mountain. It was Yi Chen. In order for a divine artifact to upgrade, it had to absorb divine stones. The law fragment could only upgrade one aspect of the divine artifact, not all aspects. Since the Scarlet Mountain Range contained a large number of divine stones, Yi Chen naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. Other than the Firmament Sword, he wanted to get a few more Sky Sage artifact swords. If possible, it would be even better if he could upgrade it to 4 or even 5 stars. The Scarlet Mountain Range was desolate, and there was a faint aura that made one's heart palpitate. It was as if mortals were in the wilderness, filled with helplessness and desolation. After flying past a mountain, Yi Chen suddenly stopped. Pfff. A few drops of blood flew out, and a big hole appeared on the mountain. After entering the hole, Yi Chen found a stone pillar covered with divine stones. At a glance, there were at least 30 of them. After cutting off the divine stones, Yi Chen flew out of the hole and continued his search. Searching for divine stones was very boring. Sometimes, one couldn't find a single divine stone even after 100 years. Of course, There were times when one was lucky and could find over 100 divine stones in a day. In the blink of an eye, 5,000 years had passed, and Yi Chen had finally obtained more than 1,000 divine stones. 1,000 divine stones wasn't a small number. One had to know that a supreme weapon could become a 1-star Earth Sage artifact after fusing one divine stone. A 1-star Earth Sage artifact with 9 divine stones would become a 1-star Sky Sage artifact. A 1-star Sky Sage artifact with 80 divine stones would become a 9-star Sky Sage artifact, and a 9-star Sky Sage artifact with 100 divine stones would become a divine artifact. Divine artifacts were the weapons of true gods. There were only 3 ways for a demigod to obtain a divine artifact. The first was to be specially refined by a true god, the second was to be extremely lucky and obtain an ownerless divine artifact, and the last was to use divine stones to upgrade it. No matter which one it was, it would be extremely difficult. Yi Chen had a lot of Earth Saint swords, more than 300 of them. Half a month had passed, and 1,000 divine stones had been used up. Yi Chen now had 79-star Earth Saint swords in his possession. Unfortunately, he had also destroyed 50 Earth Saint swords in this period of time. Not every Earth Saint sword could withstand the impact of the divine stones. Still not enough. Yi Chen planned to make as many 9-star Earth Saint swords as possible and upgrade them to Heavenly Saint swords one by one. Before that, he would not upgrade the Firmament sword's grade. The Firmament sword was a 3-star Heavenly Saint weapon, and it had devoured the Wind Law fragment during this period. It was very precious. He would upgrade the Firmament sword's grade when he had enough 3-star Heavenly Saint swords. Day after day, year after year. Another 15,000 years passed. It has been 90,000 years since Yi Chen came to the primal chaos battlefield. There were only 10,000 years left until the 100,000 years. When the 100,000 years were up, the Scarlet Continent would bring them into the Heaven Realm. A total of 189-star Earth Saint swords. Not bad. After 15,000 years, the number of 9-star Earth Saint swords in Yi Chen's possession had reached 180. As for the other Earth Saint swords, they had all been destroyed. As time passed, more and more people came to the Scarlet Mountain Range. Some were from the Radiance Continent, and some were from the Darkness Continent. Both sides seemed to be very restrained, and there were very few battles. This continued until the 95,000 year. Boom! A wave of divine stones surged into the sky, and the dazzling radiance of the divine stones was like a rising sun. Sword God Palace, Sweet Dew Sword Saint revealed a look of envy. If it wasn't for the fact that we can't leave the Sword God Palace, I would want to rob them. This should be a divine stone pit. Places with more divine stones in the Scarlet Mountain Range would form a divine stone pit. There would be at least a few thousand divine stones in the pit, and some could even reach 10,000. Isn't that so? But if that happens, the Scarlet Continent will be in chaos. Shadowless Sword Saint also had a look of envy. The Scarlet Continent had its own laws. True god emissaries or powerful demigods that descended from the Heaven Realm could only stay in specific places. Looking at the divine stone radiance rising from the east, Yi Chen couldn't help but hold his breath. Whoosh! Using the 5-elemental fire escape technique, Yi Chen's speed soared to the limit. 15 minutes later, Yi Chen arrived at his destination. This place was already in chaos. There were people from the Radiance Continent, and there were people from the Darkness Continent. Among them, 2 people attracted Yi Chen's attention. One was a female battle sage who used bows and arrows as her weapon. Yi Chen recognized her. She was the divine dancing archer sage of the Immortal Palace. She had already condensed divine power, and her strength was unfathomable. The other person was a cosmic life form with a huge head and eyes like giant gems. He had also condensed divine power, and he seemed to be called the Royal Heart Battle Sage. In the middle of everyone was a dazzling pit. Inside the pit, countless divine stones lay, sparkling and glaring. Clearly, someone had found the divine stone pit. Unfortunately, the commotion was too big, and it attracted the nearby people. Then, a great battle broke out, and it became the current chaotic battle. At least 10,000. Yi Chen estimated the number of divine stones. Green Lotus Sword Sage, come and help. When the time comes, we will divide the divine stones among ourselves. In the Radiance continent, everyone knew each other. This was the time to unite. Okay. Yi Chen joined the battle without hesitation. He did not think of monopolizing the divine stones. Otherwise, not only would he annoy the people of the Radiance continent, but he would also become the target of public criticism. Originally, the Radiance continent was in a slight disadvantage. After Yi Chen joined in, the Radiance continent immediately suppressed the people of the Darkness continent. Yi Chen's opponent was called the Revolution Battle Sage. He had comprehended the law of life and death. Unfortunately, he had not comprehended a divine skill. Although he had many tricks up his sleeve, he was still in a difficult situation under the divine skill Floating Blood. I can't stop him. The Revolution Battle Sage shouted. He had already used the power of the law of life and death. Seeing that the power of the law of life and death was diminishing, he panicked and wanted to ask for help. Revolution Battle Sage, let's change opponents. A voice came. The Revolution Battle Sage looked over and saw the Black Blood Battle Sage. The Black Blood Battle Sage had comprehended a divine skill 3,000 years ago, and his strength was second only to the Royal Heart Battle Sage. Okay. The Revolution Battle Sage hurriedly flew to the Black Blood Battle Sage. Your opponent is me. The Black Blood Battle Sage blocked Yi Chen. You can't stop me. With the Firmament Sword in hand, Yi Chen continuously performed the divine skill Floating Blood. Let's give it a try. The Black Blood Battle Sage also performed the divine skill. Numerous blurry black sparrows flew out, bringing with them the aura of doomsday. Fart, fart, fart. The blood and the black sparrows collided, triggering a series of shock waves. However, Yi Chen was obviously stronger. A drop of blood splashed on the Black Blood Battle Sage. Fart. The drop of blood seemed small, but the impact was extremely terrifying, sending the Black Blood Battle Sage flying. After comprehending the divine skill Floating Blood, Yi Chen did not waste his time. Floating Blood was becoming more and more perfect. It was not something that the Black Blood Battle Sage, who had only comprehended the divine skill for 3,000 years, could compare to. Chapter 1463. Because he had comprehended a godly technique, the Black Blood Battle Sage's attack power was much stronger than that of the Revolving Wheel Battle Sage. However, his defense was not as strong as the Revolving Wheel Battle Sage. When this drop of blood hit him, he felt as though his body was about to explode. His golden martial path primordial spirit was damaged. Why is his divine skill so powerful? Black Blood Battle Sage could not understand. No wonder the Revolving Battle Sage had comprehended the rule of life and death, which allowed him to ignore damage to a certain extent. Take another strike from me. Yi Chen wielded the Firmament Sword and attacked again with the Floating Blood divine skill. Black Blood Battle Sage had no choice but to use the rule of yin and yang. Previously, Black Blood Battle Sage's divine skill contained a separate rule of yin and yang. Now, with the complete rule of yin and yang, the form of the divine skill changed. Not only did the black sparrow become clearer, its eyes turned from black to grey, and its claws also turned from black to grey. Only its feathers remained black. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The black sparrow let out a doomsday-like cry and swooped down at Yi Chen. Rumble. The blood and the black sparrow collided and died together. However, at this moment, several black feathers passed through the chaotic airflow and shot at Yi Chen. Ding, ding, ding. Using his fingers as a sword, Yi Chen smashed the black feathers. The combination of the rule of yin and yang with the divine skill is indeed extraordinary. Yi Chen's eyes brightened as he integrated the rule of 5 elements into the Floating Blood divine skill. Previously, the Floating Blood divine skill was a few drops of fresh blood. Now, it was a few drops of bright blood that emitted a 5-colored light, looking even sharper. Fart. Black Blood Battle Sage could not block this attack. A drop of blood penetrated his chest, and blood flowed out of all his orifices. Before coming to the Crimson Continent, except for the Royal Heart Battle Sage and the Divine Dancing Archer Sage, Everyone's strength was about the same. Now, however, whoever comprehended the divine skill would be stronger. Those who had not comprehended the divine skill were instantly at a disadvantage, such as the revolving battle sage. Relying on the power of the floating blood divine skill, Yi Chen suppressed Black Blood Battle Sage badly, even worse than the revolving battle sage. The revolving battle sage focused on defense, which was much better. No, I can't take it anymore. Battle Sage Blackblood's face was pale. In just a short period of time, his martial primordial spirit had sustained significant damage. If this continued, it would be detrimental to his future cultivation. In his opinion, only the Royal Heart Battle Sage was a match for Yi Chen. Since they couldn't win, they could only escape. Royal Heart Battle Sage was being held up by the Divine Archer Sage, so there was no chance for him to rescue them. The Green Lotus Sword Sage is so strong. Even the Black Blood Battle Sage is no match for him. Haven't you heard? The Green Lotus Sword Saint was chosen by both the Sword Godstone and the Stone of Immortality, and the Stone of Life did not reject him. So that's how it is. No wonder he comprehended the divine skill so early. In our Radiance continent, he and the Divine Dancing Archer Sage should be the strongest. There were only a dozen or so people on both sides, and they were basically evenly matched. No one could do anything to the other. Yi Chen's overwhelming battle was particularly eye-catching, and it caused everyone to discuss it. Damn, how is this Green Lotus Sword Saint so powerful? The Royal Heart Battle Sage frowned. He had seen Yi Chen's battle strength. Although he was very confident in himself, he didn't think that he could easily suppress Yi Chen. At most, he could rely on his divine power to slowly gain the upper hand. 6 stars of destruction. The Divine Dancing Archer Sage suddenly launched a divine skill. Sky-raising strike. The Royal Heart Battle Sage also used a divine skill. The two had long reached the light of the soul level, so comprehending a divine skill was not difficult for them. The Divine Dancing Archer Sage had comprehended a divine skill 8,000 years ago, and the Royal Heart Battle Sage had comprehended a divine skill 7,500 years ago. Boom, 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 the divine skills clashed, and the resulting explosion radiated everywhere. In the end, the Royal Heart Battle Sage and the others were defeated. Yi Chen first drove away the Black Blood Battle Sage, then helped the others. In the end, the Royal Heart Battle Sage knew that he could not turn the tide and reluctantly left. A total of 16,400 divine stones. We have 8 people here, so each person has an average of 2,050 divine stones, the Divine Dancing Archer Sage said. All right. No problem. Everyone beamed with joy. Anyone would be happy to receive 2,000 divine stones in one go. With 2,050 divine stones, Yi Chen was much more confident. He prepared to upgrade the 180, 9-star Earth Saint swords to 1-star Heaven Saint swords. After spending 500 divine stones, Yi Chen obtained 30 Heaven Saint swords. The rest were either destroyed or exploded. The failure rate of upgrading a 9-star Earth Saint sword to 1-star Heaven Saint sword was too high. It was already good enough to have 30 swords. Next was to upgrade the 2-star Heaven Saint sword. Every time a quintessential saint artifact advanced by 1 star, it would need to fuse with 10 pieces of divine stones. After spending 800 divine stones, 12 of the 31-star Heaven Saint swords were upgraded to 2-star Heaven Saint swords. After spending 450 divine stones, 3 of the 12 2-star Heaven Saint swords were upgraded to 3-star Heaven Saint swords. In the end, Yi Chen was left with 300 divine stones. Let's take a gamble. It was time to upgrade the Firmament Sword to a 4-star Heaven Saint sword. If he was unlucky and the Firmament Sword was damaged, he would still have 3 3-star Heaven Saint swords. After taking a deep breath, Yi Chen tried to fuse the divine stones into the Firmament Sword. 2 hours passed. Buzz. The Firmament Sword's sword chi surged, and the sword hummed incessantly. Yi Chen's luck was pretty good. The Firmament Sword successfully upgraded to a 4-star Heaven Saint sword. After reaching the level of a 4-star Sky Saint weapon, the Sky Sword's source had become a lot richer, and the space, wind, and water laws inside had also become more complete. Yi Chen estimated that right now, even if he did not use the power of the 5 elements, he would still be able to beat the Black Blood Battle Saint using the power of the yin and yang laws. Every time a Sky Saint weapon reached a star level, its power would increase by at least a couple of times. Unknowingly, 100,000 years passed. On this day, countless streams of light flew toward the Scarlet Continent from all directions. Then, the gigantic Scarlet Continent broke out of the water and soared into the sky like a divine turtle. The Scarlet Continent flew. How terrifying is the power needed to make the entire continent fly? Some people exclaimed. This should be the means of a true god. Mortals can't imagine it. The Scarlet Continent was wrapped in a primal chaos light. It led everyone through time and space and flew into the sky. It kept flying as if there was no end. The true god emissary on the Scarlet Continent didn't stay idle either. He started to test everyone. The results were out. The Sword God Palace still only had Yi Chen. The Immortal Palace had one more person. Including the Divine Archer Sage, there were 2 people. The Life God Palace also had 2 people. Apart from these 3 main god factions, the other true god factions all had many members. However, Yi Chen didn't see Du Guju and the others. This made him sigh. If he missed this opportunity, it would be 1,000,000 years before he could enter the Heaven Realm again. Of course, 1,000,000 years wasn't long. Maybe in 1,000,000 years, Du Guju would already be a demigod. Pop! After an unknown amount of time, the Scarlet Continent passed through a thin membrane. We've entered the Heaven Realm. The Sweet Dew Sword Sage and the Shadowless Sword Sage smiled. Yi Chen raised his head in confusion. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,